Okay, Isaac, Merry Christmas Eve, dude.
Merry Christmas Eve. Yeah, the 24th.
Yep, you're back with your family in Ohio.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
When did you
just
get
flew
back
back.
there?
Last Tuesday from Denmark. So just been hanging out. Yeah, playing some more Kendama, not working as much, but
Mhm.
yeah, having a good time. Eating a lot of desserts.
Yep, same.
Are you? No, you're
Yeah,
not.
my mom's making stuff.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm excited to interview you today because considering you're the only one, I mean, you're usually the one behind
Yeah.
interviewing other people. So I think people will appreciate the other way around and get more insights into you yourself, especially as someone who's done so much for the community and has been in the community, very active community member for many years now.
Yep.
So I'm really excited to get into it. So thank you for making the time
Yeah,
on
of
a day
course.
like today, Christmas Eve.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I'm excited to. I think Marcus tried to ask me a few questions one time. I did like brew battle back in the day, or not brew battle, but what was the cafe
Yeah, brew
interview?
battle. Oh, I know what you mean.
It was the interview, yeah. He asked me about coffee, and I just said Starbucks Frappuccino, and then we moved on.
Review.
Review,
Boom.
yeah.
Boom. Review.
So yeah, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah. So let's talk about your beginnings as a player. And you've touched on this in a couple other conversations that you had in the past. But so starting December 2015, you
Yep,
started when you were 21 and
yep,
when you're in college, your roommate Paul got you into it. And you said you fell in love with it immediately
yeah,
and that you started playing whenever you had the chance very
yeah,
quickly.
yeah,
But you said you also didn't involve yourself in the online community until 2018, and you actually didn't play with anybody else in person until May 2019. So that's
yeah,
nearly 3.5 years of
yeah,
playing by yourself. So
yeah.
what did those first 3 to 4 years look like, and how did you manage to keep going alone?
Well, I think I slowly was putting myself in the community. I mean, it just wasn't
Mm,
like all at once, but I'd slowly follow like Dwesty and like you guys like over a few years. But for a while, I remember exactly. I mean, I was living here, working full time,
hmm
um, and just playing when I got home. Like I remember summers just going out for a few hours after work and just like literally trying to hit trade spike, trying to get the Ken to go. And I remember I have the clip of like my first lighthouse flip where like I landed it and then I had to do a full 360 to keep it balanced. Um, but yeah, I just was having so much fun just trying to do different lines. There weren't that many events. Like I don't think I knew of events, and also I don't feel like I was like I didn't really post a trick at all, on Instagram because I kind of had this standard for myself of like I wanted to po- like yeah, I guess be like post something impressive, which is
mm,
kind of dumb because I should have just posted my progression like how people do now,
mm,
but I was really inspired by like I just see a trick on Instagram, like Dwesty or you guys or Bonds, or what anybody, and I just would want to. I guess I'd be amazed because I couldn't even be close to be doing that. But like I just practice my 2-turn lunars and double
hmm
lunar flips, and my juggles every once in a while. Um, but yeah, I just was like I probably consider myself a casual player because I didn't really share it with anybody that I was playing, but I definitely was playing every day for multiple
hmm
hours a day. Yeah.
mm. Okay, so you were playing multiple hours a day, but you said you weren't sharing with anybody in your life, like you weren't telling people.
No,
Okay.
no. Yeah, I wasn't really telling anybody and nobody really knew. And then after a year, I moved to Cleveland and I had a house with some buddies. And then there I was just playing in my room. They kind of knew I had my kendama, like my close buddies did, but never posted anything. I still have some videos of like my first double stilt flip and
Yeah.
some like, I remember learning like the first year just the spin. Like I remember learning like tap, spin,
Mm.
down, or not a tap. It would just be a 2-turn swap down. Yeah, I remember
Yep.
learning that, and yeah, there's just certain things that I just learned and progressed at. But yeah, I just kept building up until my first post, which was triple juggle, late triple in, which was 3 or 4 years in. So yeah, I think I posted on YouTube, but I had an old YouTube channel where I posted like top 10 magic tricks, which you can still see, and I posted
Hmm.
some weird stuff. Yeah, just personal stuff before Lotus.
Yeah.
Because I really liked, yeah, creating, uh, yeah, kind of being creative, making my own tricks, but it was really a personal progression. But I guess, yeah, I mean, I remember, yeah. So I guess I think triple was my first post, but then I was slowly, yeah, I just started posting more, even if and that was like, my biggest lace ever. Like I just spent the most time on that at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I went back pretty deep on your Instagram,
Cool.
and I actually saw your first post, and it was actually late double Ken flip spike in August 2018 on your Instagram,
Oh, was it?
and I
Double
thought that
Ken
was
flip, late
insane.
double
Yeah,
Ken.
double a dub, and
Oh, was it? Okay. I've
because
always
I
thought
go
that it was the
back.
triple. But okay, yeah, my bad.
No, you're good. I saw that triple too.
Yeah,
But I go back and I'm on your Instagram. I'm seeing all these old photos of you, what you're
yeah,
doing, and I'm looking at the dates, and I'm looking 2016, 2017, and from what I know, I know you said you played so hard and if you're playing a lot of hours, like you just said, but I'm like. There is literally zero. You couldn't even tell. I mean, there's
yeah,
zero proof on this guy's page that he plays
yeah,
Kendama, and all of a sudden, it's like you got this trick, or I think your caption was, my lists are cleaner when I have a good background. Double Kenful blade, double Kenful spike. I mean, I
yeah,
saw it in the first post and I thought, oh my God, like it's
yeah.
actually insane.
That's so
So,
funny.
so you clearly were playing, yeah, you
Yeah,
clearly were playing a lot. I mean, you can
yeah,
definitely not do that trick unless you're putting hours in for a
yeah,
handful of
yeah.
days.
On vacation, yeah, 2018. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was at a wedding, a honeymoon, or no, a wedding, and yeah, okay. And then yeah, 3 posts later was a triple eight trip. That's right. That was my first post. Yeah,
Hmm.
I was stoked on that.
Yeah.
I yeah, I had been playing every day, multiple hours a day for 3 years before that post.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just
Yeah.
didn't, yeah, I just wanted to, like, I just wanted, I guess I just wanted to share tricks that would, like, I'd be really proud of, which again, I don't know if that's the best mindset because I still struggle with that.
Mm.
Um, of like when to post. It's so dumb, but like it happens.
Are you talking
But
about? All right, go ahead.
yeah, but yeah, like that was, I was pretty happy with that one for the time. And then uh or I guess I think I wasn't even super happy. I just was like, yeah, let's just post it. Yeah.
You laced it. This sucks.
Yeah.
It's going up though.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your favorite Kendama back in the day? I mean, yeah, you weren't always Lotus, so
No. Yeah, I remember buying the Sweets Ice something. Remember the Ice series where it was all blue? I really like those designs.
I actually don't. Oh
Okay,
wait, like
the V3 or
wait,
something?
really early on, like Arctic, the
Yeah.
solar,
No, it was
like
like
Arctic
2017.
Fade, like blue, light blue, white.
Yeah, I think so. I like
Okay,
that
yeah,
design. Yeah, that was the time. Actually, I did bring Kendamas to my work. I was cold calling 8 hours a day at
yep.
Spyglass, and everyone kind of knew I was playing Kendama back then because I just brought it one day, and then
Hmm.
I just practiced border balances.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
trying to learn border balances during my like 10-minute break. Um, I remember the most expensive Kendama I'd bought for the first 3 or 4 years was just a Bonds mod from Chrome.
Yeah,
Um, I went through, I was visiting Denmark, visiting my then girlfriend a lot. So I'd go to Denmark and then I'd buy a pop.
yeah.
Um, I wasn't really into. I think I did end up splurging like for my Christmas or birthday on a homegrown, on
Hmm.
a dude, what's it called when there's a bunch of wood in it?
Splice.
It's spliced, yeah. A spliced homegrown, and then just like, yeah, stilts were so good on that. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But that was when you guys were inspiring me so much on your guys' homegrowns, and
Oh
just I'm
yeah.
like, this must be the best stilt kendama of all time. And like you guys would just play these natty wooden tamas, or maybe it was cleared, but it looked natty.
They're
and
probably natty.
yeah, probably natty. And you guys were just lacing so hard, dude, in your basement, man. That was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Lacing so hard. Like I'm like, yeah, trying to do a double still flip, and you're just hitting like, what did Nick send like a few weeks ago, where it was just the most insane like triple tosses? Yeah, I don't know. Like that, you guys were just so far
Yeah,
ahead at
I
that
know.
time. But yeah, I remember exposure on a bonds mod, on a homegrown. Yeah, I was okay with just like cheap Kendamas that
Mhm,
I just knew that they would play just as good as like the expensive ones, because it was kind of different back then, where you
mhm.
couldn't really. I guess you could get Kush, but I
Yeah,
didn't
you
really
get
know
paid,
what.
but
Yeah, I didn't really know what Kush meant.
oh,
Because I was confused about Kush tap and Kush in, and then the
cushion
paint
clear.
push. I was so confused about that. And I never really looked it up or asked anybody. So I just played old sticky, and let me think of if I bought, dude, I was really I think probably 2017, 2018. I was inspired by Liad. Liad had the best tricks,
Yeah.
just my favorite tricks ever, just because it was all style. It was like new gen stuff but stylish,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
so I bought a Israel mod, a Tetra, really cool black
Of course, yeah.
design, and yeah, I try to tap on that, and would hit one or two or whatever. But
He's hitting
um,
10.
yeah, he's hitting 10, or just like the longest 3-2-1 line or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, he had the craziest tricks in back. He actually had the best
yeah,
tricks.
yeah,
100. He's like the Takia now. He
yeah.
was
He
like the
is.
Takia back then. I mean, I remember a trick he did in 2017,
Yeah,
2017, and he hit. And this is on a shape that's like you can't. I don't even know what to compare it to because it's actually so
no, it
small
was
now. But
small.
it was
Yeah,
5 tab jug 5 sling jug 5 tab jug spike, and I
yeah,
thought, and back then I couldn't even comprehend what was
yeah,
happening. Right
no,
now I look at that and I'm like, all right, dude, this kid was actually years and years and years ahead of
yeah,
his time. And you also mentioned that, you mentioned Liad, Marcus, Lander, and
yeah,
then Nick and myself were some of your main inspirations when getting started. You mentioned
yeah,
that. And so when progressing, would you just watch YouTube and then so as you're starting more into Instagram, you go watch people's clips and yeah, so was that
yeah.
what's really what it was?
Like inspiration for what tricks I wanted to do.
Yeah, you just listed as on your, yeah, you just like
Yeah,
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 one of your my main inspirations back in the day. I mean, yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think when I first started, it was the Kusa tutorials.
yeah,
It was Haley, Dave, Jake Weens doing, remember the Kusa tutorials with like the
yeah,
Moshikame
yeah.
song, Moshikame swag, and I literally just would watch those and then just try to hit every trick.
Okay,
And then I remember like starting and then hitting a few of the first ones, and then just being amazed about Haley Bischoff's base cup swap to Lighthouse, because I just didn't know how she
oh yeah,
swapped it. And then yeah, the border balance just seems so out of there, like just insane. And then yeah, I think the advanced tutorial was the string trick where you're, dude, I'm so bad with names, but
tornado.
tornado, yeah. um, and then I just end up progressing through those. Yeah, I end up just like after 2 or 3 years getting through those.
Yeah,
Um, and then yeah, and then I started getting on Instagram, and then I think yeah, I was really just the same. I never have really changed much, where I really like style, but I don't really take time. I don't find it really like fulfilling to develop my own style in a way. Like I just kind of I still play this sort of the same way, where I don't really like to post that much. It's just like always in my mind, and I kind of tell myself I'm going to post today or whatever, but then I just don't, and I just play and I just
mhm,
progress, which I think it's just okay. It's just the way I am. Um, but yeah, I remember just Liad, like of all the new gen kind of stuff, because there's a bunch of kids just popping off with new gen with taps and late flips. He just was the one that really looked unique. Like it looked really easy
yeah,
for him, and he just had a style, like a uniqueness about that. And I've always just really liked, making tricks look really easy. So like one of my favorite clips was Bryson Lee, the year that he won at KWC, just hitting like a really quick, I think 3 tap jug late trip toss, lighthouse trade down, and he had
yep,
sunglasses on,
yep.
and like that I
2017
just watched
Japan.
that
Mhm.
so many times. Yeah, just because it was just so clean, and and just like the way he looked back at the camera,
Yep.
like that's what I that when I started, that's what I felt like was really pushing and progressing at the time. So that's what I got attached to. And I just wanted to do that kind of stuff, even though it took me so long to do it. It wasn't until, yeah. So I was in DC, and DC is where like I got tightrope, and then I started taking it more seriously, having a Kendama everywhere around me. Just posting more on Instagram. Yeah, slowly learning taps. I remember doing like a 1 tap or 2 tap.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe my record was 4. Like I had 2 tap line, and then my record was 4 or 5. And then I lived in DC for 3 or 4 years. And then by the end of DC, when I moved to my new place, that's when I started TikTok.
Yep.
And I was in my back porch. That was in my newer apartment. And that's when I just really played a lot. Like I just was really, I mean, I hit like the fundamentals. So like around 1, 2, 3 lighthouse, around 1, 2, 3 lunar. Those were just really big tricks for me that really got my fundamentals down.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so many TikToks of just like grinding out like a long juggle line or 3 tab jug late, jug late, jug late, jug 3 tab, whatever, just like a long
Yeah.
line. And then my TikTok started blowing up, started getting like 5 million, 4 million views, a bunch of comments. And so that kept me going. And then I was really fulfilled for a while, just like landing the next TikTok line. And that's what really helped me with the style that I've always loved to watch, which was new gen stuff. I kind of like mixed myself up with, trying to go back to stilts and not getting stilts and then going back. And I'm still like that. I'm still trying to hit triple stilt flip for like the Battle of the Border. I just cannot get it consistent. And it's just crazy because I just still struggle with it. Like I definitely have progressed, but I just cannot get it 3 times in a row. But anyway, and then then COVID hit, and then kind of things changed, and then but I guess the 2019 is when I started Lotus, so that was when I was at DC.
Well, you said you don't really consciously work on your style. I would still say you have your own style. Your style is definitely taps, Ken flips. I mean, it's everything you admired when you were just saying when you first started. I think Isaac, I think taps, Ken flips, juggles. I mean, you made serious progress with your taps in the past year and a half. And I mean, I definitely associate that with you when obviously that's the tricks you gravitate towards. I mean, as you said, I mean, you put in work on stilts, but you haven't put as much, you gravitate towards the other tricks more. So I'd say you definitely have your own style, but it's hard to, I think, identify your own style I think you need someone to tell you. A little bit. Like that helps a lot, actually. It helps a lot.
I remember not playing until I was with Marcus, or not realizing this until I played with Marcus. And then Marcus is like, dude, you have no offhand. Like when you play, your offhand is just chilling. And I was like, oh yeah, that is kind of part of my style of where like I kind of look casual playing, I guess. But you need somebody to tell you. And then he's always jealous because his offhand is like always
probably like this.
Trying to exactly. And then after KWC, apparently my offhand started coming about more, maybe because I was concentrating too hard at KWC or something. That's his narrative. So I gotta like work on that again. But no, for sure. It is a thing that I think people can just tell you don't really know.
Yeah. And at what points in those first 4 years, 2015 to 2019, did you recognize that you leveled up from beginner to intermediate to advanced, and so on? Like what shifted for you?
Yeah, man. Let's see, beginner to intermediate. Early beginner, I was hitting like double earth turns, swing spikes on that blue Azora. I think I'd bought in a new Kendama, started working on lighthouses and lunars. It was a pretty easy transition. I can't really give you like that specific point. It was so early on. A beginner to intermediate. But intermediate to advanced, dude, I remember like the point when I started taking Kendama really seriously was when I was like a year and a half or 2 years in, and I had no business doing a tightrope. I think I just started landing border balance, but I just told myself that I had this like almost epiphany where I was like, even if my tightrope attempts, I'm not anywhere close to trying it, but like every attempt that I put in is one attempt closer. Like if I think of like doing a tightrope would be 1,000 tries, or for me would be like 5,000 tries because I'm not as good as border balances. Like every attempt I put in is like, even if I just put, give myself enough time, a year, 2 years, like, every time I try it. And that's when my first real Kendama project came about, where I just filmed every attempt. And I think that the biggest thing for tightrope was my mental. Like, I just blocked it out because I felt like I wasn't good enough to be able to do tightrope. And at the time, it wasn't as like, like, I don't know if you guys had done it at that time. Like, when did you guys first start doing tightrope?
Like, it wasn't, yeah, I know what you mean. It wasn't as popular, wasn't as
Yeah,
common, even though I wouldn't say it's super common now. But yeah, it definitely wasn't as common. There's
yeah,
people
yeah.
who
But
were
now
just,
it feels like
yeah.
the best players are just like, oh, I'm gonna learn tightrope today, if they haven't done it, and then they learn it. But for me, like, I was just such in intermediate stages, and I haven't seen many people do it, and so I just set myself to do that, and then I worked on it, every day a little bit, and got closer and closer. Then it was like 5.5, 6 months later where, like, I got it.
Yeah.
And then that's probably where I went. I kind of like, yeah, my mental change were like, okay, I can be an advanced player. Like, my identity can be a better player, which I think is a huge thing for progression of, like, looking at yourself like an advanced player. Or like a amateur open. Like, I remember, Jake just like, oh, dude, you have to go to pro now after he wins amateur. He's like, I don't know. I'm like, dude,
It's like,
like,
that's the only way. It's the
it's,
only
yeah,
way you can
it's
go.
an identity thing. Where, like, dude, you have just your mental is better than like 75% of the players in open, because of, like, you won amateur. Like,
Yeah.
winning is so hard to do with your mental state. But yeah, anyway, so I think that's when I got to advance, and that's when I really, like, okay, if I set my mind to it, I can do any trick. It just takes
Yeah.
time, and that's when it just started progressing more and more. And then I think, from I'm not a pro like yet. I don't have a pro mod, but going to like a pro status, I guess, was just competition of just every, for the last 3 or 4 years, every competition I just have put in, 20, 30 plus hours,
Yep.
every time, except like one or something. But and that's when I felt like, beating some of the top players is like where I got up to pro. And then, yeah, just, kind of like pushing the trick concepts, hitting 10 tap,
Yeah.
getting some good, yeah, get some good lines in that I think, all my tricks people have done before. I don't really strive to do like the MBD, even though I would like to do that, but I just end up not doing that. It's still, yeah, I think I'm at this level of like consistency and skill where, yeah, I'll be pro status. Yeah. And
Yeah.
KWC too, like another competition. Yeah.
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 Yeah. We'll definitely talk about that KWC,
Yeah.
especially later. But I thought that was really cool what you said about how, you went from your mental state went from, okay, I don't think I'm kind of the person who can do tightrope. This
Yeah.
seems kind of outreach. Like, you said yourself, like, probably in your head, you're like, I have no business trying this, but screw it anyways. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah.
And then actually doing it, proving to yourself that you are a person who can do it, and then changing your perspective of what's
Yeah.
possible for you. That is so powerful. And
Yeah, dude.
I mean, I bet that played such a huge part in your Konami journey after that. I mean, you just alluded to it, but I can only imagine what that must have been like, because Tyro back then was a seemingly impossible
Yeah.
trick. It wasn't done. It was done by like four play. I mean,
Yeah.
really not
It
many at
was
all. No,
really
like
small. I mean, it
really
was, I
very
don't know what
not
year it
common.
was, but maybe it was like 17 or 18 or something. Maybe
Yeah,
2018. Where,
yeah.
like, yeah, I hadn't seen it that much. I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, I don't want to downplay how few. I feel like when I did it, I was probably the first 20. I don't know, but then there's probably so many good
No, I
players, like,
probably. I
yeah, like
mean,
So Canada, who like didn't do it, but then probably could or something. But I don't
I've
know.
never seen him do that actually, but
Yeah, okay.
I know
Well,
you're
yeah.
just I never seen an example, but yeah,
But yeah,
but
that
I
like
remember Bonds learning it. And he was the person in 2018 where he seemingly just picked it up, and
yeah,
honestly, it just makes so much sense with him. But I
yeah,
knew you because of Tyro. Like, that's how I
yeah,
started to know you.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. That I think whether however many people landed it, whatever. But for me, it was like, this is, if I can do this, this is where I can show the
right.
community that I take Kendama really seriously, and I can be. I just wanted to be like a top player. Like, I always wanted to
Yeah,
be significant in the community,
yeah,
and man, that mental was insane. Like, by the end of it, I had the skills down because I did it for an hour every day for six
totally.
months or whatever. Like, I like in terms of the balance and the skills, I had that, but it was
Hmm.
just like when it would get close to landing, I just wouldn't believe that I'd do it. Like, I really was like a confidence issue. Like, it was like,
Mm,
I don't deserve to do this. It was imposter syndrome, you know?
Mm.
And then I just worked through that and kept going. And I remember I had a jaw surgery because my teeth, it's nothing like serious, but my teeth were messed up. But the recovery was serious.
Yeah.
My face was like huge. And like, I just, after like 2 weeks, I should not have been playing kendama. Like I just had to watch it sit down, you know, as I was healing.
Mm-hmm.
But I just like got up and then like within 3 tries, just I got it on the string for the first time. Because I just wasn't, I just was like, oh, I was like, dude, my blood was in my head and it was like so bad, but I just wasn't worried about anything else besides just like, oh, just get the Ken on the string, you know, just
Right.
what you kind of go through. And I got it on now. I'm like, oh, dude, I can do this. Yeah. And then it was like maybe, 2 weeks, a month after that. And then in my DC apartment, it was one morning I was taking a break from work because I was working from home. And I was like, yeah, I think I got it today. You know, like I think
Mm-hmm.
today. Because some days you would just try it and it just wasn't happening. Like it just would not go on. Like it was literally, I don't know, man. It was just literally like I couldn't get on the string. Like if I went for half an hour, just one time it would hit the string. And
Right.
it's so funny because I feel like you know how you don't there's that thing of like, oh, because people see 10 taps, they know it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I think me trying to do that really put the significance in like I've only seen Cooper do this, and I don't know how much he worked towards it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long it took him or anything. And there's just that one tutorial that I watched literally thousands of times.
Yeah.
It was just that one tutorial. And so yeah, sorry, we're talking about tightrope so much, but I think it
No.
really played a lot of into like my mental developing, you know.
Yeah. I mean, to I think a lot of people. I mean, it's super common to have that go through that same experience and be on the beginning side of it, like you were, of not knowing or like being inspired by a trick, but not knowing if it's okay to go for it. You know, if it's like
Yeah, if
if
it's
it's
okay to go
time
for
yet,
it.
if it's
Exactly.
time,
If
and
it's time.
people need to make that mental jump
Yeah.
themselves,
And
and
I think
like how you did it. It's so important.
yeah, I'm really glad that we're talking about this because I think that it's something that pros don't think about anymore because
Hmm.
they've got to that identity where
Yeah.
they have that identity now. But it's probably one of the biggest things that intermediate and advanced players are struggling with. And that's something that
Right.
I can definitely touch on in Houston is just
Hmm.
believing that you can do it, and which is so cheesy, but it is really, really true. I think people can tell themselves that, like, yeah, I understand that there's just a progression system. If I just keep progressing, if I just keep working on like a four tap,
Yeah.
but there is so much to do with like I believe I can four tap. Like I can know, like attaching yourself to if I just keep practicing it, it will happen. I think the
Right.
closer you attach to that equation, then the more you'll progress. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's kind of like a. I heard an analogy the other day for something different, but it applies here too. It's like if you run a marathon, you know when the
yeah,
finish line is, and you can kind of play games in your head of, okay, well, I'm 2/3 of the way there. I only need 1/5 of the race, 3 more times to go. To
yeah,
make it, but there's going to be an end, and you know where it is. You just have to keep
absolutely.
going. But for example, you're trying tightrope, and now you can, yes, like Nick and I and people can make different progressions to give you checkpoints, but it's not like literally how many tries it's
No,
going to take to actually do the trick. Like when you were trying tightrope, you didn't know, okay, on 3,400 tries I'm lacing this.
yeah,
You just hoped and you kept
yeah,
believing in yourself to do it. And I think that's what's so cool about Kendama and so beneficial if players can really stick it out on certain tricks or certain consistency grinds, or yeah, even competition. It's just knowing that the only way that you don't reach it is if you just stop,
yeah,
and then just believe in yourself and knowing that, okay, it's going to happen eventually. And the more you play, as you said, like pros don't think about that as much because they've proven to themselves time and time again that they can obviously
yeah,
do tricks like that. And for pros, it probably happens more on a minute level and certain very specific tricks. But yeah, for advanced and intermediate players, that's huge because they see all these high level play, but they're not there themselves yet. And maybe it's in their mind that they don't know if they can get there, but it's
yeah,
totally possible. It's just believe it and keep playing,
yeah,
and just not quitting, really.
yeah, really, yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I think the players where you see the quickest progression, they don't have that for some reason,
Hmm.
or maybe they have a good community around them where they just start leveling up on their own. You know, like Casey or Danny.
Yeah.
I guess Danny. I don't know how long Danny's been playing, but he seems like he's progressing really quickly.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, they just can kind of ride through that. But I think a lot of players just have these blocks of personal belief or confidence. Yeah.
I think the environment really helps. Like the
Yeah.
environment of who you're playing with, or who you're talking to online, really helps because that
Yeah.
support system is huge. And when you're getting pushed to go further, when you don't, even, when someone else believes in you, you don't believe in yourself. It can be so powerful. So
Yeah.
I think environment plays a massive role.
For sure.
And right now there are so many tricks to look at on Instagram. Like you said, like we alluded to in the past, like Tower wasn't as popular. And now there's seemingly just kids with like 2 Instagram posts that can do it
Yeah.
in Japan, something like this.
Yeah.
There's so many videos on YouTube to watch, so much more content now for tricks and Kendama, which is awesome. But with all that in mind, what's some advice that you can give to a beginner player just starting out who's seen all this content and wants to improve? What's some advice you can give that player?
Oh, wait, I'm in a Discord call right now.
I don't
I gotta
know.
stop that. I'm Zach. Let me go on. Disturb. All right. Sorry. What was the question again? The advice for.
So there's so many tricks on Instagram, so many tricks on YouTube. With all of that in mind, what's some advice that you can give to a beginner player just starting out who has seen all that content and then wants to improve still?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're a beginner, you just need to find your own little like flow of just playing. You can't do any kind of comparison. I guess ideally you want to be comparing yourself to somebody your equal level, but it's just, I mean, truthfully, it's so many hours and years away from, being where you want to be, I guess, a pro player. Like I think I was off Instagram and not really a community member and just kind of doing my own thing. And that I think kind of helped just progress of just finding joy and my own level ups,
Yeah.
So I don't know if it would be like to not be, no, because I think it is important to share your Instagram and share your tricks and be part of the community. But yeah, on Instagram, you're going to just see so many other better tricks, So yeah, I guess it was different for me because I'd recommend something that I didn't do myself. But yeah, I think finding a little squad of people who are just your level and just working with them on bettering your tricks and watching their tricks and trying to do their tricks and they're trying to do your tricks. And then just slowly like progressing, when you're a beginner, it's just like the best, it really is the best time because you can just go into any concept of like, whatever you want to do. And there's just freedom to be able to do that. Like, for me to do that now, if I want to work on string pinches, I'm going to get less consistent at taps. Like if I spend a month doing that, a month later, I'm not going to be able to tap as much as I am right now because I got to keep taps up all the time or else I lose it. And that goes for like 5 more concepts, right? Like I can't learn string pitches right now, or like regoons, I guess. I can't learn regoons right now because I'm practicing for battle of the border. And if I want to do well at battle, then I can't start going down regoons, even though I want to do regoons. But when you're a beginner, there's none of those expectations that you're set yourself for. So it really is like a privilege to just have this full freedom of doing anything. So I guess that's pretty motivating for players of just like you just have full freedom of like working on your own thing, whether it's like swaps or trade spikes or it's pushing yourself into a whole other thing of candlestick grips or string flow. It's those are the best days. So I think it's just like whatever, if you want to be, consistency, I think for me, it's the most important thing is the amount of playing you put in. Like there's nothing like the amount, like the hours that you put in are so much more valuable than like any, which I did my presentation on, so much more valuable than anything else that you can do, whether it's watching tutorials or being part of the community, like on Facebook or whatever. Like the only way to get better is by playing. And so I think in order to do that and to put in work every day, you need to have a lot of fulfillment and a lot of pleasure playing. Because if you're pushing yourself too hard, it's not going to be fun. You're not going to do it. So just like really getting into like a fun progression system, like just having fun playing whatever you're doing, if it's fun, just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That makes total sense. And so basically so you're saying what worked for you was kind of disconnecting at first,
yeah,
and taking your progression in your own hands and kind of, I guess, not having so many, definitely didn't have as many influences, but just kind of focusing on one route. You said
yeah,
the Kusa tutorials.
yeah,
And then for now, you'd say you'd recommend, okay, if you can find a squad that's around your level, of course, if not a
yeah,
little above, and just play with them, push
yeah,
each other. And of course, that if you don't have a person people in person, online
yeah,
is a good place to start. You just got to take a little effort to find your people
yeah.
there.
Making
Yeah.
progression your own, I think what you just said was, yeah, that's exactly it. And now we have Kendamanomics, so definitely
Yeah.
just
Boom.
hit the app and just do as many tricks as you can do. I think
Yeah.
that's like the perfect progression system.
Really good
Yeah,
place to start as well. Like
yeah,
perfect place to start, I think.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's awesome. The developments now, this yeah,
yeah.
what's available now.
There's thousands of tricks that you could just start trying.
hmm hmm
Yeah,
Yeah. So, and we mentioned earlier you started Kendama when you're 21 in
yep,
college. Now you're
yep,
30 and you've
yep,
progressed to pro level skill.
yep,
And I started to get closer to you when you were living in New York with your now wife,
yep,
working full time as a pharmaceutical sales rep, and you were
yep,
still crushing your progression. I mean, I really remember that year as being, wow, Isaac is really leveling up as a player. It's like
yeah,
very, very notably.
yeah,
And since then, that was I first started getting closer in February 2023. But now you live in Denmark with your wife. You run
yeah,
Lotus full time, and now you're a dad
yeah,
with an 8-month-old daughter.
yeah,
So how has your Kendama play changed in the past 8 months as a father?
yeah. Um, it really doesn't change that much, but I think
hmm
that's partially because the freedom that I have of my job of running Lotus full time, it's like such a huge privilege
hmm
because I mean, I work harder than I've ever worked in terms of like putting in hours to my job because
hmm
it's just so fulfilling and there's so much to do and it's my own.
Yeah.
Like I've always been entrepreneurial, but like I just know there's so much to do. So I could just sit down and work for 14 hours a day if I wanted to, but I've other things like a daughter and my own economic progression that I want to do,
Yeah.
or just spending family time, whatever. Um, yeah, I think it would be harder if I had like a full time job that wasn't Lotus
Mm,
because yeah, with Lotus like I can just really pick when I put in the hours,
right.
to do 40 hours a week, whether it's
hmm
like most Saturdays and Sundays I'm filming and working.
Yeah.
But then like usually during the weekdays, I throw in 30 minutes at lunch or something, which I guess you could probably do if you're working from home. But like, yeah, not when you're working at like a cafe or something, like
Mm,
Starbucks. Um, but yeah, I think if I had a normal full-time job, I feel like I'd still find the time. It's really just finding the time. I mean, yeah, like I just find the time with the baby. I mean, typically what I've been doing is yeah, the 30 minutes during lunch, and then my wife will put the baby to bed around 8, and then
hmm
that's when I have my own time to put in an hour. And really my progression has always been like that. It's been slow and steady. It hasn't been like I've even when I've had like a lot of time, which I really never have had a lot of time, like the high schoolers that can put in 8 hours a day consistently.
Yeah.
I've never been able to do that. It's always been an hour every day, an hour
Yeah.
to 2 hours every day. And then once in a while on a weekend, I'll play for 4 or 5, just once in a while. Or like, go to an event and then you put in 8 hours every day on an
Yeah.
event. And yeah, and I always was just, never really knew if that was enough, but it's kind of proved to be enough because it's not like an hour every day for 3 years. It's been now 8, 9 years of an
hmm
hour a day. And then
hmm
as you get up there, people who you've looked up to and were way better than you don't if they don't have that long-term consistency, they'll drop off, and they'll
Yep.
take a break. And then I think that I probably like named 10 players where were way ahead of me, and then they took a break for whatever reason, and then I kept going with my hour a day, and then they come back and I'm at that level that they are, you
Yep.
know. Um and Yeah, and there's players from like day one where we were close to. I remember, I guess not day one, but like 2 or 3 years in, Josh Kim, Joe Nelson were players that I felt that were just a step ahead of me. Like
Mhm.
those are the peers that I kind of looked at.
Yeah.
And I think they are still ahead of me. I mean, Josh got 10th, and Joe's edit was just tricks that I can't do. Um, but yeah, like I've caught up to them in some concepts, you
For
know,
sure.
and then there's just a bunch of other players that either took a break or just something happened, and then because of my an hour a day slow and steady progression, I've been able to surpass. Um, and so yeah, it's still been like that. I mean, it's still just like I'm busy during the day, but
Yep.
I find that hour at some point. Um, and I'm always looking for more hours, really. Like, I mean, Christmas break right now, like I just went through Christmas for Lotus. I put in a lot of hours in November, early December, and now I have more time. So I'm at home, the baby's with my siblings, and I have my Kendama in my hand like all day. So I've been playing a lot recently, like the
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah.
Um, and that's been really nice. But yeah, I mean, if I didn't have like a wife or if I had like no job, I probably would be playing like 7 or I've been playing a ton, right? Like depending
Right.
on how my body's feeling. But like Chris Bosch is the same, like I know he took a break there, but he has a wife, has a full-time job. He works really hard, works 60, 70 hours a week, but he still finds that time. And yeah, if you can get 7 to 10 hours in a week, you're going to be progressing, like,
100%. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he is always he's so impressive
yeah,
with knowing that those details about his life. He's just even more impressive because he's literally laying down very debatably, if not like just outright the hardest single tricks
yeah.
in Kingdom.
Yeah, it's insane.
And
Yeah, it's
it's
really good,
amazing.
really good inspiration. Yeah,
Yeah, and I really like what you said about that. How it's not like you've always had a lot of time. I mean, you started Kendama at 21. You're in
yeah,
college and exited college really fast after you started playing.
yep,
And it's not like you always had a bucket of time to tap into, but just the consistency over many days in a row. It's not like,
yeah,
yeah, not a couple here, not a couple 5 hour sessions once, twice a week here and there, but no, it's an hour every single day,
yep,
not for just a month, 2 months, but for many years on end, at least an hour a day. It sounds
yeah,
like the average. So really, really, really cool to hear. And
yeah,
I remember I mean, that was really how Nick and I were doing it too in college and all that. I mean, yeah, we'd have our 4 to 5 hour sessions like one day out of the week on
yeah,
weekends for sure with our local jams, but I can definitely relate to that.
yeah,
So I think that's really awesome. A huge testament to what can really happen if you actually are consistent. So
yeah. I mean,
I think that's
I've
really awesome.
literally, like, I know, yeah. Even with Lotus, I'm still playing an hour a day. But even back, I've had a full-time job
Yeah.
out of my, I guess like 2024. I started 2016, so 8 years. I've had a full-time job the entire time except for 6 months. The first 6 months I was in college, and then I traveled to Europe for a little bit. But during that time, I still only played a little, like an
Right.
hour a
Right.
day.
Right.
But like other than that, I was working 40 hours a week. And then, Lizzie's 8 months old. So the last 8 months I've been working and then had a baby and had a wife where, that's not kind of a time when you're like helping out with the wife or just relaxing,
Wait,
enjoying
you guys
time.
don't have hardcore sessions together?
No. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Um, so yeah, it's always been like that, man. Like an hour a day for 8, 9 years, and I got to the place where I'm at right now. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's amazing.
yeah,
Let's talk about Lotus.
yeah,
Let's so I know you started Lotus in 2019 and you really wanted to have big cups, big
yep,
shape. You basically used the Gloken box at the time and
yep,
basically used the dimensions for that and made it like a millimeter smaller so it could really fit.
exactly.
And my one of my main questions is about you starting Lotus because you started in 2019, 4 years after you started playing. How long was Lotus Kendamas an idea in your head before you actually made it to a reality?
Yeah, I mean, I studied entrepreneurship. I've always wanted to know that I wanted to own something of my own.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's just a personality trait that I've had. And I started my first premiere was NACO 2019. Uh, I announced it, I think, August of 2019, so a few months before NACO. And I think in July, I started talking around the community, just seeing like where kendamas are getting produced. And then yeah. And then, so I kind of had that idea and then just kind of went with it, bought 100 Kendamas of money that I saved up from my full-time job, and then went from there. So it was only a few months before that. And then I think I spent like a month developing the sacred shape, just like
Yeah,
literally just drawings in my notebook of what I wanted to do. Yeah, so just a few months, and then I premiered at NACO. Yeah,
that's epic.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I think that's so you really just popped into your head, and then as soon as it popped your head, it sounded like you took action and you made it a reality. As yeah, the first event,
pretty
you
quickly.
remember you said multiple times that that first NACO was so impactful for you,
Yeah,
and that you came out of that event super thankful of becoming part of the community, and in a deeper way,
yeah,
with it being a company owner. So I think that's awesome to that you only took that your time from idea created to time of actually employing that idea and putting in action was just super fast on the grand scale of things. And
yeah,
I think there's a lot of people who I just want to highlight that really quick, just because I think there's a lot of people in Kendama who have really amazing ideas. I mean, I've talked to so many people who actually have such good ideas for if it's not a company, the Kendama company to manufacture Kendamas, but maybe it's something with like tracking scoring or for like rankings or using AI in some way or whatever. It's I
yeah,
think they have people have really good ideas, but um, it just it's at some point it's just stop. It's just like the thinking is good, and then it's just
yeah,
actually doing it is what's the next step. And I think a lot of people get stuck in the thinking phase and putting it off. And I think a lot of great things can happen and will happen for Konami in 2025. But
yeah,
I've just talked to a lot of people who have been in that thinking stage for actually sometimes years and not done anything yet. So
yeah. No, for sure. I think it comes back to like that self-confidence thing
yeah,
of, you know, everybody around who there was like the Steve Jobs video that I just love, and it really has changed my life when it comes to getting stuff done. But maybe we can link the video in the description. But it
yeah,
was just basically like everywhere, like there was this realization that I had, you know, around, like probably 2016, 2017, where I watched this video, and in the video he just says that like you everything that's ever been done in the world, like governments, anything, it's just been done by people, just like you and me.
hmm
You know, like we've all built up these systems over years and years, but they've all been by people, and I'm a person and you're a person. Like once you really grasp that, then you can really express yourself in doing some things that you want to do. You know, I'm not obviously like doing the video justice. I got to watch that video again, but
we'll link it.
yeah, yeah, link it. Yeah, it's an amazing video. And so I think, you know, with me just setting, you know, just believe in myself and pushing past like the limiting beliefs that I had of doing tightrope. It was sort of the same thing with Lotus of like, no, I can just do this just like anybody else has done it, you know, like
Yeah,
I'm just a person like anybody else is a person, just like Matt Sweets or Torco, who owned, you know, at the time owned the biggest companies. Um, and so I just was like, yeah, I can do this. And I nobody really knew me in 2019. I had a
hmm
few friends that I was hanging out with in DC. But that was my first major event. I met so many people there. I would go up to people, just introduce myself, like, yeah, I'm the biggest fan of you, whatever.
yeah,
And telling Wyatt that at Down in the D and Dwesty and watching them. Um, like I literally at some time, you know, I was just a new person to this community and nobody knew me, you know. I just started with like Lotus. I was, hey man, you know, I just sent so many kendamas out to people. Like even like I don't want you to get sponsored, I just want you to try this. Let me know what you
right,
think.
right,
Um, and then yeah, it just I think that was the hardest step, was that first step, you know. And then from
mm,
there, like you just slowly get more ingrained in, yeah, you just kind of put your mark on the community more and more. And like I remember just I think it was Battle after NACO, and Chad, I was like, I became friends with during that
hmm
time, you know, those few months, and he invited me over to his house with all the pros were there, and no, and like, I felt like out of place, and I kind of was out of place. Like everyone was like, "Oh, who's this? This is a new guy," because I think at the time the elite community was really kind of closed off, like siloed, and so they're like, "Oh, who's this new guy?" You know, and it was awkward and weird. And I was definitely like awkward at that time. Christian Frazier was there. Yeah, Parker Johnson. Yeah, Chad, Sweets guys, Soul guys, whatever. And I don't know if I really even talked to anybody at that Airbnb, or maybe I was just hanging out with Josh, like just filming him and like do the tightrope or whatever, because Josh started doing tightrope early too. Um, but and now it's like I know all those guys, and we all So it's just I guess just illustrating that I feel like I kind of came a little bit late to the OGs or whatever, but I was able to put in enough work and prove my work to people that like, yeah, this is something that is important to the community that I'm really working on and really trying.
Yeah.
And then from there with the hours that I put in, it just keeps building up and building up, where now we have like a really, really good team, and Lotus has really good shapes and is really significant, and that was just a span of like 5 years,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's really fun to think about like those early days. But yeah, I forget
Yeah.
what the question was, but yeah.
No, no, no. I thought that was awesome. It's nice to hear your kind of like what you were to know about you were thinking about back in those days after you started the company. You get
Yeah.
into that circle of these players the players and company owners that you were looking up to and
Yeah.
inspired by, and now all of a sudden it's at the event or before the event, and you're all hanging out with them in a very more casual setting. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa! I mean, I remember my first time doing that too.
Yeah.
It was a different setting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was a little
Oh,
younger
but
than
yeah, you
you,
had the same
but yeah,
experience. Yeah.
but it's the same thing. I was like, what? I'm actually with these guys,
Yeah.
not at
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
event.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is we're all right. We're just talking. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
cool. So, but yeah, that transition into doing starting Lotus and actually doing it and putting yourself out there, and I think yeah, it's obviously you obviously learned a lot just by doing.
Yeah.
Just by doing the action, and I think that's so awesome, dude. I
Yeah.
really and I yeah, let's just go right into the creation. I had a couple more questions about that, but I just wanted to honestly, because right now you started as Lotus, new company, Sacred Shape. I knew you guys were having like the biggest cups on planet Earth,
Yeah.
like 100%.
Yeah.
But now, you know, it wasn't until 4 years later that you actually dropped a new shape.
Yeah.
4 years, June 2023, you
Yeah.
come out with the Element. It's now known and loved by the community as one of the best playing shapes on the market.
Yeah.
So how long did it actually take to develop that shape before you actually released it to the public?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was like 2 years. It's
Wow.
funny because I was so obsessed with making the second Lotus shape,
Yeah.
and just like making that really, really good. And that was the Element shape. And now
Yeah.
we have how many more shapes? 5, I think. Especially with one more dropping at battle. But yeah,
Mhm.
we have standard, your guys' shape,
Mala, Mars,
Mala, yeah.
Sacred Element. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and then a bunch more coming next year.
Yep.
But yeah, I think from the very beginning, I just wanted to. I felt that there was room for shapes to really help players progress.
Mhm.
I think every company was sort of thinking about that. Like the sleigh dog with the lunars, that was a big inspiration of like, oh, now lunar tricks are way easier because we made a shape that is better for lunars with the sleigh dog, and everyone was doing the lunar UFOs, like Cameron
Yeah.
Herrero and Bonds and stuff. Um, and so I kind of wanted to feed off that, and I made the sacred shape. It was pretty abstract, because of how big that cup was, but I just wanted to have a really good lunar shape. And it was tall, so I just kind of like put myself out there as like a really new weird, not weird, but just a new shape that people really haven't felt before. And that was also when that same event was when the one up dropped.
Yeah.
And or no, what was that soul? Is that the one up with Liam
I think
Rowder?
it was the one up.
Yeah. And I think it was like about the same size cups, but their shape was a little bit more balanced. Um, and that was like that next time where, okay, this is like a shape that like just really helped players progress. It went from like kind of smaller shapes to like, oh, this is way easier to juggle, way
Mhm.
easier to do a bunch of tricks. Um, and then when I dropped the sacred, there was a bunch of companies that kind of came in, and then also had that same vision of like, let's make, big shapes that are really unique. That, when you play them, you're like, oh yeah, it's a lot easier to do the tricks that I was just trying on like an old sweet shape.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm pretty sure like that first year, even 2020, I was sampling new shapes, and 2021, 2022, sampling new shapes, just drawing new stuff up, like going kind of like the weird creative route. I think I was
Mhm.
just doing more abstract stuff. And then during that time, building up Lotus, finally had like a solid team of Franta and Marcus. Franta came first, and then Marcus came later. And then we dropped Element at EKC 2022, I think, or 2023.
Element, I think 2023.
Yeah, 2023.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we were trying all these different things. I was sending them to the team. And then we went for more like a less risky route of like, we don't need anything too crazy. We just kind of want to go like a compact, like,
That's a good word for it.
standard,
Yeah.
just good shape. And then we made one final change, and that final change was huge. I forget what the actual change was, but it was like a really big change. We got the samples in. I went with the production, so we got the PDocs mods for EKC 2023, and the shape was just like perfect. Like I remember getting it at the campground, and it was me and the team. It was when we were doing the tour. So me, Russ, Ria, Marcus, Franta. So we were diving into this new element shape, and then there was a bunch of people on the campground too, of like, just trying out the shape as well. And like Finn and Ezra were there, and we were all really, really liking it. Like it just seemed to tap really, really well. It just seemed to do everything really well. It's the balance. I think Marcus just noticed that like the balance was really good. Like when you flip the Triple J, it just seemed to rotate perfectly on axis. And I think that the final change was just to make it a more balanced shape versus, a too big of a serrato or too big of a handle. And it wasn't tall either. It's like an average 162, 163.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we got those and they felt really, really good. And then I made a teaser. I paid my friend Ryan, who's a cinematographer, to help me make the teaser. I think the teaser did really well. It was like out in nature, and people were really excited for that. Yeah. People were really excited about that video, and I think it kind of illustrated how much work that went into building the shape. And then we dropped it, and then it just went from there. Of like, okay, yeah, we would make new shapes, and then our players would still kind of go back to the element. Like even today, I have all these shapes, and I use them for certain reasons. Like, yeah, the Mars I really like for stilts, and then we're redesigning the model. I think the new model is going to be amazing. But I'm personally still kind of waiting, and the Gallagher for sure too. Like with stilts, like that's the stilt Kendama. It's really good for taps. But we also made a little change for the standard shape that I think is going to play a lot better. But yeah, just slowly taking the other shapes and trying to get them to that level of like the magic that we found with the element.
It's I'm wondering, just because the sacred shape and the element shape are so different. They're just so different. And I know I can only imagine the process. I mean, you said 2 years.
Yeah.
Like that's a long time, but I mean, it's an amazing payoff of how much the shape is loved, how it plays, just such a high level shape, and is, as I said, like known as one of, if not the best shape in the game, which I think is so amazing. And when designing the element shape, you said you made a massive change at the end, but you did mention, okay, the Marcus said the balance was really good, taps really well. Were there any certain tricks or any certain aspects of the Kendama that you remember really prioritizing when making the shape? Like in particular?
Well, Jack from Occult was a huge part, because I had been sampling Kendamas and, using the factory. It takes some time, it's expensive. But then when I was in New York, me and Russ would go over to Jack's workshop, which was, I guess his living room with a bunch of wood scraps everywhere. And that's when we would go up there, spend the day. I'd pay him for like 5 samples, and then he'd just get 2 samples out that day. And then so like we'd try something new, he'd sand it, we'd try it, and be like, all right, let's change this, do it again. And that was probably like a 4-month process
Yeah.
of like really dialing in this shape. And I remember just being like, yeah, I wanted to sling and loon. And then Jack was like,
Yeah.
that's really hard to do. Yeah. So that I think that was basically it. Like I just wanted to be good at everything,
Yeah.
that's what I kind of wanted. And, of course there's going to be better lunar kendamas that are worse at slinging. There's going to be better slinging kendamas that are worse at lunaring, but it really is a balance, as people
Yeah.
know. But I think we just stuck with like this perfect balance of like, yeah, I mean, every kendama is different in a batch, but for the most part, the average is like, you can definitely trip a lunar flip,
Mhm.
and you can definitely do a trip sling pull up,
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah. Yeah.
some damas will be a little bit better at one, just depending on the density of the wood.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just wanted to be all around a really good kendama. Just like, yeah, I think it was the all around thing that I was really shooting for. And and I think the way that I got there when I was sampling through the factory was I throw out like really insane measurement. I'd throw out like a really
Mhm.
insane shape where like
Mhm.
I have some prototypes in my drawer that are just like nothing you've ever seen. Like I
Yeah.
don't know if you've seen those, but like I had like the slinging shape where it was just full
Mhm.
on slinging, and then I had like a full on lunar shape. But there's a lot of shapes out there that you can even just try that are just really good for lunars.
Yeah.
Um, and I tried different handle stalls and different spike lengths and the tallness or the shortness. Um, and then I think really, like broadening, you know, these really unique shapes that I've tried really helped me like dial it back. It's kind of like doing like, oh, you're trying to learn two turn, or you're trying to learn like a double J stick. Well, try like 4 or 5, because like, a lot of players can't even do the double yet. But when they learn how to like actually just huck 5, like
Yeah.
actually get it to spin 5 times, then the 2 is way easier.
Right.
And I think it was sort of like that, where I just was like just pushing myself into all these different, yeah, unique kendamas, and then it was a lot easier to come back to something that I knew was really balanced and solid. But yeah, I'd say that it was just, yeah, that balance and the all around aspect that I was really striving for.
Yeah, and the all around aspect I think is a goal for many companies, but it's hard. It's hard to. It's really difficult to hit because
Yeah.
we know, like you said, what makes a Kendama a really good slinger nama. You know what makes a Kendama a really good lunar nama. You made prototypes that were just insanely was one way in both those directions. But to actually have that balance, I think it's so hard to achieve. And to have a great all around Kendama, I mean, I'd say you definitely achieved it. The element was used by so many players at North American Kendama Championships this past
Yep.
November, and then at the Kendama World Championships
Yeah.
by several finalists,
Yep.
and it was even used by the world champion himself.
Yeah.
So, how does it feel to have something that you worked so hard on 2 years be appreciated on this level and used by so many high level players?
Yeah. I mean, it was when Ryoga won, like it was just incredible. I think that's when it kind of all came to me that like all the work that I've been putting in was it, like I was rewarded in that way,
Hmm.
Um, and I was like just because I just cried for so long after Ryoga won. And
Hmm.
of course, like I don't want to give myself too much credit because I really think Ryoga could have used a lot of different shapes in one because of how good he was. But the fact that he did, yeah, he used the element. There's a lot of elements out there. It was just really, really fulfilling and rewarding. Um, yeah, it just felt incredible. Yeah, just amazing that um, this idea that I had in 2019 of trying to make shapes to help players progress, like just yeah, that idea that I was just always striving for, which I think kind of came from me playing. I'm a player
Hmm.
first, and I was doing taps and lunars and just struggling. I was always like, maybe it was an excuse of like, oh, I know this Kendama can't tap or whatever. Um, oh yeah, and shout out to Sweets, the Christian Fraser mod, which was incredible for lunars. I remember getting one of those and was just like, whoa,
Decade mod, yeah.
that was a big inspiration. Yeah, and that was after I think it was a sacred. But yeah, I think just continually working and trying new shapes um, for so many years, and even after the element, I like that next week I sent in a different prototype.
Hmm.
Which is so funny. But you know, even after the element with all these new shapes, where I'm still prototyping. I think prototyping is like the biggest thing. You know, like I think that's what really stands Lotus out is because of how much I'm testing stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to be getting, you're just going to be finding like the best stuff. And because I'm a active player who's progressed so much, I'm a great tester, you know, because I really paid attention to a lot of details. But yeah, anyway, yeah, it was just a really, really great feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you made a good shape when there are pros from other companies using that shape to
Yeah.
compete.
Yeah, for sure.
That's how you know you made a good shape.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know
It's
you said
awesome.
what you said about Ryoga. Yeah, he could have used different shapes and gotten used to different shapes. I mean, that of course is true. I mean, he could have for sure.
Yeah.
But I know for after competing at the World Championships for so long and beating that, just beat on that level, and this is not a joke. What
Yeah.
you compete with at that event, especially. It's just not you. I mean, everybody's making sure they have the perfect setup.
Yeah.
They're
No, for
for
sure.
them,
Yeah.
Something they're
Yeah.
super used to. So the fact that you were able to make a shape that so many players prefer, I think that's huge. So yeah, really just
Yeah.
congrats to you, because I've actually thought about that a lot yesterday, and I thought, wow, I mean, Isaac, well done, seriously,
Yeah.
amazing.
And it's really just exciting. I'm excited for the future as well, because
Hmm.
this past 6 months, I've really been diving into the physics of flipping and tapping, and it's such like this. I mean, I think in the world, nobody has really analyzed how when in other practical applications would you analyze like tapping a kendama. It's just so unique, like tapping wood
Yeah,
back and forth and keeping it up.
yeah,
And so I feel like I'm really, and of course not just me, but everybody out there who's trying to make the best shape and really analyzing kendama, because there's so many people who are also inspirations to me.
hmm,
But it's just so cool that we're really pushing like physics in a way without being physicists,
hmm,
um, of 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 like analyzing the movements of wood and how it bounces off other pieces of wood. But yeah, anyway, I'm really excited for the future because I just made a lot of like strides towards improving. You know, it's never stopped at the element shape. Like
right,
I'm looking at, like looking up center of balance
hmm,
and the axis of rotation and stuff, and working with um, my good friend Shardama of prototyping stuff,
hmm.
Andrea. Um, so yeah, I'm super excited for 2025 because I think we're going to be coming out with just the next development of
Yeah,
what a shape can do for a player. Yeah,
yeah. I'm really excited too. Just element being a big checkpoint in this the grand vision of things, which
yeah,
is awesome. Yeah, and for everybody listening, that's just going to add in a little context of what Isaac's talking about. Yeah, the other day, maybe a couple of weeks ago, we were texting me in group chat with me, Nick, and Isaac, and I think it was like the next morning. Isaac said, "Yeah, I was up super late last night talking to ChatGPT about taps until 3 a.m."
yeah, dude, it's crazy.
Dude,
Yeah,
I literally at that moment, I was just reminded that, oh yeah, Isaac's just on a completely different level.
yeah,
Okay, I mean,
yeah,
I was like, ChatGPT adapts, and then you're like, yeah, it's crazy how much it knows. I was like,
yeah.
what? I was like,
No,
yeah,
it
bro,
is.
thanks to you.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you can tell it's funny because sometimes it makes an error of kendama because kendama is too niche where you have to like
Yeah,
correct it, and then it's like, oh yeah, my bad, and then it says the right thing. But yeah, it's just physics, dude. It's just
yeah,
insane, and there's a little chemistry in there too because of like the wood and what wood is made out of.
mm,
Um, and being 30, I I never did really good at school. I was never really academic, but I find myself like really enjoying studying these things now.
yeah,
And like taking notes and stuff. So yeah, and it's all going to help
100%.
at the end of the day. It's just going to help me progress. I think that's what
Yeah,
it really strive. Yeah, like the biggest inspiration is like, oh, trying a new shape. It's like, oh, this is better at taps. Like here we go, I can do 12 tab now.
yeah.
It's just kind of dumb, but um,
No, it's like you're looking for always ways to optimize. You're not, yeah,
yeah,
you have a really good shape of the element, but you're just like, okay, what's next?
yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's
no,
really,
for
really
sure.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So awesome. So you mentioned you mentioned the team earlier. Let's talk about the team. Right now, Lotus has 12 members, 13
yeah,
including yourself. I
yeah,
would include you. You're definitely a
yeah,
player. So
yeah, yeah,
13. 4 players in the United States, 4 players in Japan, and 5 players in Europe. So very diverse, very spread out,
yep.
but in a good, like, you're balanced in all areas of working on was most popular in the world. What do you really look for when sponsoring somebody?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I think it depends on, I think just in general, like where the company is at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was early on, I was really looking for anybody that represent the company well. And Frank was just a gift from God. He
Yeah.
really was. Like I was a huge fan of Franta back before I started Lotus. But then when I started Lotus, I just sent him Kendamas immediately. I had a list of players that I'd love to have that weren't sponsored yet. And Franta was just, I mean, first of all, I think, yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot recently too, because looking at my own team and making sure that we're all doing like the best job that we can to represent Lotus.
Mm-hmm.
But I think number one is passion, like it's being in love with Kendama and being passionate about Kendama. That can come down to, you can express your passion in so many ways of doing your own unique tricks or doing KWC tricks or competing or whatever. But that doesn't, like, the avenue that you pick doesn't really matter as long as you're really passionate. I think when you're passionate about Kendama, like you'll show that passion in so many different ways,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's like the tricks that you choose, the creativity or the competition, how you compete, or just everything. And I think that's the number one thing. And nowadays, because we've been able to like build up a really good team, I think passion, it has to be there, but then also how you express that. Like I'm kind of more granular with it of like, yeah, I think, Instagram is really important because, first of all, I think if you're passionate, you're going to just naturally want to share what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're playing a lot, I think Instagram clips are going to come. So it's not that you have to post on Instagram, but typically if you're passionate and you want to like, put a significant mark in the community, you're just going to naturally be posting.
Right.
So it's kind of like, yeah, I look for posting and significance on the community and pushing the community tricks forward. But that just stems back to how much passion you have. I'm looking just for these, special standout players, who you can just feel the motivation that they have through the things that they do, whether it's stories or Instagram or YouTube edits or competitions.
Yeah. Do you make sure
Yeah,
you talk to people beforehand too? Is that something you
yeah,
prioritize?
yeah, for
Getting to
sure.
know
Yeah,
people.
I think when the team was a little younger, it was easier to get the team together to really make sure that they vibed with one another.
Right.
And I take my team recommendations really seriously. Like, Goya was added to the team mainly because of Marcus, because Marcus really
Mm-hmm.
liked 'Goya, and he was like, dude, you're gonna love him, And so I met 'Goya, and then I loved him. Yeah, he was the best to hang out with,
Mm-hmm.
really fun, and then really passionate about Kendama. He
Yeah.
was one of the only players that kept playing after Romania, the
Yep.
Romania community died.
Yep.
And I think it's really hard to do in Romania because everybody knew about Kendama at some point, and then some people kept playing. Versus like in America, where it's like this niche thing that kind of makes you stand out. I don't think it's really like that in Romania.
Mm.
So that just kind of helped illustrate how much passion he had for Kendama.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get the team together nowadays. So I think if we're going to add a Japanese player, they obviously need to meet they need to know the other Japanese
Of
players to
course.
make sure that they're good. They're nice people who get along. And then the same for the US and same for Europe.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think you can also be, I guess there is a few exceptions to being passionate, which is just not getting along with other teammates or being too egotistical or too cocky.
Mm.
You need to kind of humbly go into the Lotus team and really meet everybody where they're at,
Yeah.
which I think you guys did a great job of, because, when we partnered,
Mhm.
combined our thoughts and ideas, I think that was a big test of like, okay, you guys have already been really established, like what's that going to be like? But you guys really got along with Russ, and I made sure, like I sent Marcus over to China. Nick was going to China, so Marcus
Yep.
and Nick roomed together, which is really cool. That was after you guys were added, but it was
Mhm.
still really cool to hear that Nick and Marcus got along really well.
Yeah.
And then you, Zack, just getting along with the team, and you guys are just the best personality because you guys are naturally like, just really humble and easy to talk to, and you don't come in with like this I'm a Gallagher type of vibe, you know, um, which you could be, but and there's other players who do that, you know. Um, but yeah, I think it's kind of like this big balance of being passionate, expressing your
Hmm.
passion, and then fitting in with the team and with the culture that we have at Lotus, you know.
Yeah. And I definitely want to touch on the culture, but I think a lot of players wonder about how big of an importance this next factor is, which is skill.
Yeah.
So, of course, I don't think company owners are. I don't know for sure, but I would say in my experience, I don't think company owners are out here really trying to sponsor like beginners. Like that's not a priority. It's not like
Yeah.
yes, let's go find the person who's like the freshest economic. But
Yeah.
but obviously knowing you, I know you really value skill for yourself. So and every team's different, but for Lotus, where does that skill aspect come in consideration when deciding whether or not you're going to sponsor a player?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think again back to passion. Like if you're really passionate over years
Hmm.
and years, your skills are going to be developed. You know, and again, it doesn't have to be skills of like the new gen stuff like taps. It can just be skills of like Francis tricks or Gabriel. Gabriel's a really good
Mm,
example where he's not necessarily progressing 10 tap, but I could really feel the passion that he had with just being a creative younger player and just really seshing tricks that he really enjoys and really loves. And that kind of stuff makes a big impact on the community, you know? So I think skills are really important, because it's just like if I had a future tone of, device and I could see a beginner, knowing how skillful that beginner would come, then I
hmm.
would sponsor them. But you don't really have that. And
Yeah.
there are, I mean, as you know, there's so many players who were not only beginners, but beginners who progressed really quickly, and even pros that were just really making a mark in the scene. And then their passion, they kind of lost their passion and they didn't work to get it back, or things that just come into life with
Hmm.
a sport that you don't make money off of. Um, and then they disappear, and so um, I think skill is really important. Um, but it doesn't precede passion, I think. Yeah, like it
Hmm.
comes after passion because I can just envision a player that doesn't have all the skills in the world, but you can just really feel how much they love Kendama through what they're practicing and how they're sharing and what they're sharing.
Yeah.
Um, that would make a really good Lotus member,
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, if a person's passionate, the skill's gonna become as a byproduct with time, of
Yeah,
course. And then the opposite is true too. Like you could have a really, really great player, but they're just not passionate anymore. So
yeah,
they're not going to be doing as much for the team. And even if they become unsponsored, and you know, they could just not be the same as they once were when they were really
yeah,
passionate. It can go both ways. So I think that, well, for let's first say, for example, I remember last year when you hit me up and I wasn't even on Lotus at the time, but you're like, "Hey, do you know anything about uh, Misaki and Asahi
yeah,
for the Japan?" And you didn't tell me that you were planning on sponsoring them, but I think you just asked me out of the blue. I just kind of figured.
yeah,
But I had actually never really I knew of Asahi because of his KWC tricks. He had like 2 World Cup tricks in 1 year, but I never heard of Misaki before. So what's when you're looking to add players to a team, across, you can't meet them directly. I mean, you're in Europe, but you have obviously ties to the US. You go back to the US, but for Japan, it's a little different. You haven't met for those two. I don't know if you had met them before. Had you met
no,
them
yeah,
before? Yeah. So for that decision, I mean, what really went into that? Because that's kind of a different layer of adding a different type of adding somebody. I mean, they're in Japan. You can't really probably don't know English. I mean, they don't
yeah,
speak English, so it's like what's how does that differ from sponsoring in
yeah.
Europe or US?
Well, those were the first people I reached out to for sponsoring on Lotus Japan or like the
Mhm.
Japanese team for Lotus. Um, and I was kind of starting from ground zero of like who would represent Lotus the best.
Mhm.
And I
But
think
you had him a heart though, right?
no, not at that time.
Oh, really?
I reached out to Asahi and and Misaki first, and then I was like, yeah, let me send you packages. Like, I think that you make a good fit.
Mm,
And then I did meet them before I added them, but I
mm,
added them the first time I met them. So like,
yeah.
I think it was at KWC where I met them, and they seemed like really, yeah, really, really nice, good people that their personalities would fit really well. And then at KWC, I also talked to Maharu, and Maharu was really
Mm,
interested in Lotus. And I think at KWC, Maharu came in with a personality, but also he'd been playing for such a long time. His skills were developed, his passion was there.
yep.
Asahi and Misaki were newer to Kendama.
Hmm.
Um, so I ended up adding Maharu at KWC, and then later that year I went back for Catch and Flow, and then added Misaki and Asahi.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So I still took a day or two to make sure, like even with Maharu, I didn't officially invite him until like the last day of KWC,
Yeah.
you know, before he got third.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I just want to make sure that he would mesh really well. And I feel like with Japanese personalities, they're just so many of them are just like the best people, you know. And maybe it is like the language barrier where it's hard to get to really know them. But I just had a really good feeling about Maharu, and yeah, his skills were just unmatched, you know. And I
Yeah.
remember being a fan of Maharu back, seeing the COVID KWC runs and the catch and flow runs,
Yep.
you know, when he was playing Roth. And so I had known Maharu way longer than I had known Asahi and Misaki, although I started talking to the latter two before I started talking to Maharu about Lotus. Um, but yeah, I think Misaki just came in with a really, yeah, unique personality. I really
Hmm.
value like a girl being on the team. I think it
Hmm.
adds a lot, just like Leah, you know. I don't want just a bunch of sweaty guys on the team, you know. It's not fun. It's too competitive. um, but Misaki has really proved to be like, she's really busy with school right now because it's the cram year.
Yeah.
But she is just you can just tell she's like grinding, you know, like
Yeah.
she really pushes herself and she's hit 10 tap, for example, but and other tricks too. Like she has really good form, and I can see her really progressing into a top Japanese girl, and it just honestly is a top Japanese player. And then
Hmm.
Asahi, I think he was one of the only Japanese players with this really insane creative string flow. He was really inspired by Marcus and Franta and
Yeah.
Marcus were also inspired by Asahi, and I'm inspired by Asahi too because of the string flow that he's pushed and how creative he was, which was really rare in Japan
Hmm.
because of how big competitions are, JKA and KWC. And so that added a lot for Asahi. I mean, he's a quieter guy, um, but he's really easy to talk to. He's a funny guy. Once you get to know him, he has a really good personality. Um, but I really, really valued the, uh, the passion that he has for Kendama when it
Yeah.
comes to creating his own tricks. Um, and yeah, that's kind of where I decided on Asahi and Misaki, and then Maharu, yeah, came on first, and then they came on. Those are the first three, and then we got Ryoga. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it's nice to hear like the thought process of that because expanding to Japan, big move.
yeah,
Yeah, big move, and you really want to have. I mean, it's really important to you that to have people that that represent you well over there when you're not, when there's a big time difference, you can't talk as frequently, or yeah, even with the language barrier, having that representation over there in the home country of Kendama is massive. So obviously, the amount of care that you put into that decision is huge, and I think you really hit it out of the park on the Japan pickups, dude,
yeah,
because you got those two, and then Maharu, of course, and
yeah,
he's kind of like for me, he's like the main Lotus
yeah,
Japan
yeah,
guy.
yeah,
Um, and then after that, he just picked up Ryoga, and
yeah,
like that was a big pickup,
yeah.
obviously, So, it's was that an what? So he got off Dream Kanama, and did you as soon as you knew that, did you know that he got off Dream Kanama, and were you like, okay, I'm gonna ask him, or how did
I was
that process look like?
I was talking to him before. I
Okay,
honestly like with Lotus, I've always sent my new shapes to the top players.
nice.
Like I've sent Takia shapes. Like I'm really good friends with Aviram, and I'm never gonna steal Takia from Kendama Israel, but because I'm so inspired by him, because he's the top player, every time I see him in Japan, I think he's just annoyed by me because I'm like, yo, try this shape, like tap this. Let me know
He
what you
sees it.
think.
He's like, oh my God.
Yeah,
And you're
literally.
like, dude, 5 minutes, just lights whatever you want.
Yeah. Honestly, I've always just been really outgoing with sending, my latest product to the top players with, again, no intention of taking them from their team. But that's sort of what happened with Maharu and Ryoga. I think they really respected Lotus. They like to be sponsored by an American company. I've been able to help them get out to NACO, and they're
Yep.
coming out to battle.
Yep.
I think with the value that I put in with like these in-person competitions, I think they understood that, and then it ended up being fulfilled by them coming to NACO and battle, and then hopefully EKC as well. I met the Dream owners, and they're really cool. They brought me up to their headquarters.
Yep.
And there's no ill intentions there. Dream does. They're kind of unknown because they're really Japan, China focused, but they do a lot for their players, and it was really cool to see that they posted when Maharu and Ryoga left that they like graduated from Dream. I think that was really, really cool. Again, that's not the intention to take players from other teams, because I would hate that to happen to me. But I think they kind of saw the vision. They saw the shapes that I was making, and I wanted them to get out to American events because I know how good they could be, and they wanted that as well, and so they jumped on board. You guys helped out with Ryoga, obviously, but I think Ryoga wasn't a winner at that time. I mean, he was just an Instagram icon. He was tapping a lot.
Yeah.
By the time that we added him, I don't think many people were talking about him being a KWC finalist. I think he got top 10 the year prior.
He got 10th.
Maybe, 10th. So that it was kind of like, talks. But then I think once I started talking to him, and then once he officially came on board, he really showed his stuff. Like that's when he really made that big leap of progression and started being like, okay, this guy could win KWC. And then I think as KWC came closer and closer, you saw his tricks and his form and his technique, and that's when it's like, okay, yeah, this is a contender with Takia. And that's what it kind of ended up being. It was like, see what Ryoga does, and Ryoga hit his run full marks, and then Takia just barely didn't spike that last trick.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so close, like in every other universe, Takia would have hit that. And so and then that's kind of how it came to be with those two. And I'm not really afraid of making the team bigger. I kind of want to make sure, like at this point, we have kind of more power to add like the player, like we don't have to take as many risks, as the Lotus team. But I'm still super open to adding new players when they come around. We'll have a big announcement at EKC next year. Battle, we're not adding anybody or announcing anybody, but I also just make sure that everybody's cool with it before. I think for Ryoga, or for some players, it was like, okay, I want everyone to meet these guys. But then, the Japanese team, it's harder for them to, like Marcus and Fran, to meet these guys. So I'm like, yeah, just trust me, and they're like, yeah, okay, the deal, So that's how Ryoga came about.
Yeah. I mean, epic pickup, and you got him before he was winning a lot, and now he just won 2 major competitions in a row. So huge. Right. What type of culture? How'd you describe the culture of the Lotus team?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting bigger, and with a bigger team, it's hard to really establish like a close-knit culture. I think back in the day, we didn't really have a culture with just Franta and Luke Ford when he was on our team. And then when we did the EU tour, we really got to know each other, and I don't want to take credit for this because I think all these players are really friendly, really easygoing. They make an effort to talk to everybody. They're really fun to talk to. They're friends with a lot of people in the community. I think that's maybe partially why they were attracted to me to add to the Lotus. It's just stuff that they did, that their personalities. But I definitely go into events of like, I think it was EKC during the EU tour, like, hey, like I sent a message to everybody, like, this is what we need to do. Like, we need to make everybody feel welcome, to talk to everybody. There's nobody that's worse than us, or, like, everyone's on their own progression. I
Yeah.
don't want to come in with this elite feeling. And honestly, shout out to Ria for really putting a lot of that work in. Like, she did such a good job during the EU tour of talking to every girl at every city that we went to, like, just
Hmm.
making sure that the girls felt welcome, because it's a heavily male dominated sport.
Yeah.
As you know, it's like 95%, whatever. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Marcus, Franta as well. Like, I think in person it plays a big part of the culture. It's hard to kind of, like, I think if you just saw Marcus's Instagram clips, like, for me myself, I thought he was just like this ultra cool guy who
Yeah.
just was kind of quiet and kind of to himself, but that's just how he is on camera. And if you talk to Marcus in person, he's like the nicest guy, give you a big smile, and
Hmm.
really gets along with all players, all skill ranges. And I'm kind of like that too. Like,
Yeah.
I make sure I put in an effort to talk to everybody, as many people as I can at an event, to stop by the booths, and to just notice players who aren't being noticed. I think that goes a long way. So I think, yeah, it's kind of hard right now because the Japanese culture is mainly really competitive, because the most active players right now are Ryoga and Maharu, and I think they're the most popular players right now.
Hmm.
So, but those two guys are really, really nice. I just don't know the intricacies of, like, when they're speaking Japanese, how they come off. But I think they come off as, like, really nice. Especially, I think Ryoga, especially, like, I guess it's just him being so young
Yeah.
that you can't really have this crazy confident attitude when you're 13, 14 years old. Maharu's more established, but it seems like he gets along with a lot of people. He just is, whether it's like an American event or it seems like a Japanese event, he's just really excited to be there. His excitement comes in the way that he presents himself. Goya, dude, I mean, just going to, I think he went to like 20 events last year in Europe.
Yes. Crazy.
Everybody loved him, like, he just is really easy to talk to. And also, I think the skills and the experience and the passion are
Totally.
present among all these players.
Yeah.
And then you guys too with Nako, you guys didn't compete, and so you're like, oh my god, Nick and Zack are separated and talking to people, like, this is incredible. Like, usually you're in your corner just winning.
Practicing.
Yeah, practicing and then winning. But it was really cool to see that when you put the competition aside, you guys really opened up, which you said you would. You guys
Mhm.
knew, like, you guys took the comp off because because you wanted to give your spit. You knew that if you were going to be in the competition, that you had to go. You were just so passionate. You had to go as hard
Mm.
as you possibly can. But when you took that variable out, then it was like, oh yeah, you guys are super super friendly, super nice, talking to everybody, and you guys have always been like that. But of course, like, on comp day, you need to compete.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think Lotus, the team of Lotus, what you said really stuck out to me about, something you said you don't want to take credit for, of how people on Lotus are usually tend to be very, social at events, very
yeah,
very people persons, like to interact with the community, very open, obviously not having that attitude of being really cocky or I'm above you in some way.
yeah,
I think that definitely starts with the person, the company owner, and I think, and obviously you don't want to take credit for it, but I think like attracts like. So, um, yeah, that's definitely something that I can see in you as well. So, I totally agree with you too. When you said that, I thought, yeah, I mean, everybody on the team, like everybody on the team is super super awesome, and always making an effort to go out of their way and talk to people, and just interact with the community and get to know the community better. So I think that's actually massive. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's kind of just like a bonus that most of the players on Lotus, I mean, like all the players on Lotus are very skilled,
yeah.
So it's just like that's
Yeah,
really cool how that works
another
out.
quick thing too, I noticed that at events, it's frustrating for me to get everybody for a group photo. But now that I think about it, it's a good thing, because everybody is on their own, doing their own thing, talking to people who are not members of Lotus. Maybe Marcus and Goyle will be together, uh, but, like, other than that, like, Ria's somewhere hanging out with some friends, and then, like, yeah, Marcus Goya typically talking to different people.
Mm-hmm.
Like day one, I'm usually at the booth, and then day two, I just like need to go out and play with some people.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of like a good trait that like everybody is spread around the event versus all being huddled at the booth, hanging out with ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we have our own time to do that. Like when the event's done, you're at back at the hotel, we're all hanging out. Like that's what we love to do because we're all like really good friends. But I think during the event, it kind of shows our culture because we are just spread around talking to all these different people.
Mm-hmm. That's such a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. I'm excited to see where the Lotus team goes in 2025. I'm really
Yeah.
excited to see how it develops and the players that are coming into it. And yeah, it's going to be really awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk, speaking of competition
Yeah.
at an event, let's talk about competition. So it's known that you're very competitive. You said it
Yeah.
yourself many times.
Yep.
And you said in his interview last year with Sweets that you did in January that you're using all your competitive drive that you didn't get to use in high school, like for basketball, into Kendama. You mentioned that. And then after competing in many competitions since 2019, hosting your own online and in-person competitions, and also analyzing some of the top competitions across the past years in YouTube videos. KWC, you made so many reaction and analysis videos to those. What unique lessons and benefits have you experienced in your time of competing that are just not present in casual Kendama play?
Yeah. So what unique lessons are not present during casual Kendama play?
That you can get in when you're competing, when you're taking the competition side of Kendama?
Yeah. It's a really good question. And the book that I read, The Inner Game, was it The Inner Game of Tennis? That Shane
right.
told me about.
Yeah.
This author was really against competition because he would feel bad. You're beating somebody, but you're gaining something, and then they're losing something, and there's something that doesn't feel right about that. And I totally, I definitely empathize with that. But then, like the next paragraph, he talks about how his dad disagreed with him, and the author's dad said, "Well, why do surfers go for the best waves? Because the wave doesn't feel anything, right? It's not another competitor that you're going against.
Mm-hmm.
But the surfer, the individual athlete, wants to put their skills to a test. So they're going to go for the biggest wave to put their skills to a test.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really illustrates the value of competition. Is you're putting your skills to a test in the most important environment there is in Kendama, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody's watching. You're going against the biggest, best players, and of course, not everybody has that attitude, but that's the attitude that I have.
Yep.
That like, it's great beating some top players, and I hope that they have the same attitude. But it's not because I'm like avenging them or I want them to lose and I want to prove that I'm better. Although sometimes those thoughts come up, being super competitive. But it's just like,
of course.
Like, there's only one way to test your mental and your physical, and it's through competing with somebody else on stage. Like I can go through as many Excel sheets and percentages on my own to get my physical skill up, and that's so much fun for me. And it's proven to myself, like it's testing my consistency, how consistent I can be at these specific movements, which I think goes way beyond Kendama.
Mm-hmm.
But the mental part, you cannot get that unless you're on stage competing against somebody else, whether it's even if it's a freestyle that it's like, all 8 people go, you're still watching those other 8 people and you're still trying to use the skills and the physical skills and the mental skills that you've learned to beat them, but not really beating them, but it's just kind of proving to yourself and progressing yourself and showing yourself that you can do it. So yeah, I think it comes back to like a casual play. You can become really consistent and you can test yourself as much as you want. And if you only want to do that, that's great. Like Franta is that type of player where when he got upset by Chris Bosch because it was a controversial judge call, he's the type of player that was like, honestly, this is the best situation where I had a really good freestyle run, but I don't have to do any more. you know, and that's fine. Like I take that, and that's just the way
Mhm.
he is. You know, he's not that type of player, but I think I really believe that, you know, putting your skills on a show and
Yeah.
presenting it to other players, I think some people get more fulfillment like me, and other people just get less fulfillment from that. But I think there is intrinsic value in that public competition
Mhm.
of because that, again, that's the only way to test your mental capabilities, and it just, you build your self-confidence up is by um losing so many times, you know. Yeah, just like pushing
Yeah.
yourself, practicing losing is such a big lesson, you know, of
Yeah.
like, what do I need to progress? And it's mostly your mental. If you're putting the physical in, it's your mental, you know, that you need to progress. um and so when you progress your mental, then like you yeah, I mean, you can't do a swing spike to get a job, but you can have experience of pushing past barriers and pushing past your own limitation and learning from your mistakes. So when you go into the job interview, you can use that Kendama competition, that experience that you've
Yeah.
gotten to really help you do other things in life, you know?
Yeah. The lesson transverse is like, way more than just Kendama. It just
Yeah.
goes, and you can apply it to many
And of
things.
course, there's the physical part. There's definitely, it's not just like, oh, so you can't swing spike to get a job, but like, you know, just the physical part. You definitely take a ton of lessons in for normal life of like
For sure.
believing that you can do a tightrope after doing it. It's the same sort of thing of like, oh, I could be this type of job. I can be this type of person, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But there is a mental part that you're missing if you're not competing. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Just kind of performing at the on when it counts, and I think the main thing you highlighted there was just really testing yourself, putting yourself out there, and testing yourself against other people who also care about this like you, and want to succeed like you. And I think that's massive, and so many mental developments from there. Really testing, really, it's like just putting yourself out there, because
Yeah.
that takes some skills. Some people don't like to compete because they're like, oh, it's so nervous, it's really nerve wracking, and I don't know if I'm that type of person. But it's, and then it's again, it's like that. It comes back again to what we were talking about earlier. It's like you can transform yourself, and when you put yourself out there, all the benefits that you just said, it can really, really, really impactful. And um, so I really like that you touched on that. Just putting yourself out there to test yourself, it's
Yeah. No, for sure.
huge.
I think a lot of people when they first compete are just like, oh God, I'm so shaky. I can't do this, you
Hmm.
know? And I totally resonate with that because I was the same way. But, you know, if I want to be the person that I want to become, I want to become a person that can execute, that really is confident in myself and the things that I do with my family or
Yeah,
my future pursuits with career or just my day-to-day life, you know, like I want to be a person that can execute and that can push past physical sensations that feel nervous, but I can have this inner belief in myself. You know, that just extends throughout life in so many ways that like is
right.
so valuable. I think most people would be like, do you want to be shaky on stage? Like, no, I want to be a person like a future Isaac or a future somebody that I want to be able to execute like this, like
Yeah,
not only in Kendama but in other parts. And the only way to do that is to learn from it and then push past it and to develop yourself, you know. And that Kendama gives is just such a great tool for that, you know.
yeah. Like there's a lot of lessons in Kendama, even if
Yeah.
you don't win
Right.
in
Oh, for
Kendama
sure.
competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't won, you know, like I haven't won a major comp, but
Mhm.
I like the competition. I've just been obsessed with, especially the past year. I've only been doing
Mhm.
competition stuff. You know, I haven't been posting that much because I've just been practicing. Because you know, I want to not only push myself, but I want to push. Like maybe this is a little bit too like too much of a broad statement, but I think what we're doing with Kendama is just so unique of what the human race has done with any
Mm.
object. Like, you know, it's there's so many comparisons to not only NBA players, but like, you know, old swordsmen going into battle or just pottery maker, you know, making
Mm.
cups for whoever. Like I think the human race has always been about like getting your, you know, honing in your skills
Yeah.
and providing value to people. Um, and we're just we're capturing that essence through Kendama by, you know, by yeah, progressing your physical skills and your mental skills, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think it's
Yeah.
really, yeah, it's cool. It's really amazing to see and just reflect. I mean, back when I started too, just how far it's come and how where it's going. I think it's the Kendama competition, especially. It's going to be just such on a way bigger scale every single
Yeah.
year. So,
Yeah.
can you share a specific competition moment that you have had in the past that had a profound impact on you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was NACO 29. Was it NACO 2019 or was it COVID 2020 where I just went for it? Like I just was like, I wrote down on my notebook, like I can win. I can be a top player. You know, I can do this if I put in enough work. Like I'm not, I'm going to practice more than anybody else,
Yeah,
you know? And then I went into, I think it was NACO online. I feel like it was
2020.
in person. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I forget exactly which
You're not
one,
then.
but I lost, you know, like
Mhm.
I don't know how far I got, but um I guess it was battle. It was battle 2020. That was online. So NACO I went,
About 2021. Yeah.
yeah, about 2021. Yeah, I lost at NACO. I don't know how hard I went for NACO 2019. No, but I think it was that next battle 2020 where I went, and that was before COVID, so it was in
Oh, okay.
person.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
And then I think it was those, yeah, ever since that event, like those first few events, I just went as hard as I possibly could. Remember the summer series?
Yes.
Yeah, dude, I was practicing so hard for those.
Let's go.
Like it was just a true like every day, like a job type of thing where I'm pushing through my comfort. You know, I'm
Hmm.
pushing through, like trying to just better myself and trying to win. You know,
Yeah.
um, and I remember the most I've ever practiced was I think for a summer series where the week leading up to that event, I put in 5 hours from 6 a.m. to like 11 a.m. or 12
7 days
p.m.
straight.
noon. Yeah, yeah. Like
Oh my
those are 5 days:
god.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I was doing 4 or 5 hours on the tricks. I
Yeah.
lost. You know, like
Hmm.
I don't know. I think I lost to George Marshall, who like
Mm.
just has been playing for so long. I put in thousands of more hours, not thousands, but like hundreds of more hours. Probably like I probably put 50 hours for that comp, and he probably put in like one or two. But because he'd been playing for so long, he could just hit that triple lighthouse flip. And for me, it was like I didn't have that consistent yet.
Yeah.
Um, and then ever since then, I mean, there's a few competitions where I just didn't go as hard, but like for the most part, I haven't gone that hard of like 5 hour sessions every day leading up to it, but definitely 20 to 30 to 40 hours every competition.
Right.
And you know, I can see myself. I every time I lose, like I'm upset and it sucks, but I always just go to my phone and just, you know, go to a note and say what I did wrong, like what I need to
Wow.
do. When I lost to Edwin to get into top 8 at NACO, I went straight outside, you know, like expressed my frustration, and then I went into my Excel sheet where I keep all my notes and my stats,
Hmm.
and then I just tell my phone exactly what went wrong, you know, like what I did that was wrong and what I need to improve for next time. And that just gives me motivation for next time of what I need to do. And yeah, so I think because the trick lists are really similar and they all are like these concepts that are so ingrained in a lot of these top players that
Yeah.
me coming in newer, of course 2015 isn't newer, but like, you know, when I'm playing Edwin, who I think started around the same time as me, but has put in more hours than me, or Alex Mitchell, who, you know, is just like God's gift of consistency. Um, but also he just has these, whether it's like a lighthouse to a stilt, you know, that takes more effort from me because I haven't done it that many times as he has. But I believe that, you know, in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, I'm gonna get to that level because
Right.
I'll just continually practice. Like the tap stunt trick. I heard some people struggling with that, but I remember practicing a tap stunt trick 3 years ago for NACO, and so I have this trick already 60% because 3 years ago I put in the work. Or like 1, 2, 3 lighthouse flip. I mean, that
Right.
would be such a struggle for me now or back then, but literally 6 years ago I did a run 1, 2, 3 lighthouse, and that was the biggest grind for me ever. Like
Yeah.
that grind was the biggest grind at that time.
Yeah.
And I haven't hit it first tee yet, and I've lost a few points on it. But like, those are a few examples of tricks that, yeah, I think as I put more and more work in, I'll slowly develop. I expect to slowly develop a level of consistency is what I'm shooting for. Where
Right.
I'm like the Gallagher's, or I'm like an Alex Mitchell, where it's just locked in, you know? And yeah, it's kind of a long-term goal for me, is just like, I don't know how good I'm going to do at battle. I've been, you know, doing okay at the at your competitions, but it's more of a long-term thing where like
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot to win, and chances are I'm probably not going to win, but I know that's going to just help me develop for future comps, because I'm not going to be going anywhere, you know, like for the last 8 years, I haven't been going anywhere, you know, like
Yeah.
I've always been here, putting an hour in a day. So just a slow progression of like, yeah. So again, I forgot the actual question, but
No, it just sounds like it's totally good. No, you
yeah,
definitely
just,
answered it.
yeah,
And I think, what I noticed about you, Isaac, is that you're very aware of the journey,
yeah,
being in the journey. And I think that's so valuable. And that's obviously a testament to other challenges, not just Kendama, but other stuff that you've really stuck with in your life. And I think that, for what it sounds like to me, is just your goal with competing is to continue competing. Of
yeah,
course, that's the goal that supersedes
100%,
everything.
100%.
And of course, a win would be awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
that's epic. I mean,
yeah,
that reality is something that pushes you, of course.
yeah,
But I really like what you said about, it's a long term thing. This
yeah. It's a
is
long-term thing. Yeah,
you've accepted that as a huge challenge, and it's only going to be achieved by putting in the work, and you put in the work all the time. And you're being very analytical about it, and
yeah,
actually documenting your thoughts and the
yeah,
process that go into this, which is
yeah,
another level of this another step that not many players take. Definitely not that many pros take that. I mean,
yeah,
I know I've known all of them. I
yeah,
can't say with complete certainty that none of them are doing that, but I doubt many of them are doing that. So it's huge, and it really reflects your level of care that you have with this. And I think it's going to be amazing when you do achieve that level of success that you're pushing for it. Because I mean, the only way you guarantee that you don't get it is if you stop. And I think you know
yeah,
that. So
yeah, for sure.
it's awesome to hear you talk about competition like that. And I did want to. I know we're almost at 2 hours here, but
Instagram
uh,
questions or one more question?
yeah, well, I did want to. I mean, this
Go
is
do it.
this is
It's
pretty big
fine.
for you. So this is pretty big for me, honestly, to watch too. And I just want, and so if you guys don't know Isaac's old videos, and you just know him now as a awesome company owner, player, you guys don't know, but Isaac, if you go back on Lotus Kendamas YouTube, he has amazing, amazing, amazing content. I mean,
Yeah,
seriously groundbreaking content. And I would have loved to give more into that today, but maybe we can go into a different time. But basically, one of the videos series he's done in the past was Kendama World Cup analysis videos,
yeah,
reaction videos, and you've even posted final runs of in practice and final runs of KWCs, and also practice videos when you're at KWC recording top players, just practice. So it's
yeah,
obviously clear to me that you really love this competition and have loved it for many years. And so this past summer, you made the finals of the World
yeah.
Championships, something that only 40 players out of 700 plus were actually able to do. What did qualifying for KWC mean to you after so many years of really just being enthralled by this competition?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I barely got in. Um, but man, that was incredible. Like, yeah, it was just huge. I mean, I've been watching KWC literally since day one. This is one of my first videos that I've ever watched, was the tricks, you know, and just being
Yeah.
obsessed with the final runs. I've seen so many of Nick's final run and Takia's final run.
Hmm.
And I think that's just the coolest format, because it just kind of combines like a flow and a style to open tricks, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just the world stage, like that. It's just the place to test your skill, like what I was talking about earlier with the server and the wave. Like KWC
Hmm.
is the place to do that. Um, but yeah, that was incredible. I don't want to take a what do you call that when it's a country? You know, like I want to. It's of course fair. Like what's it?
Oh, you mean your your
Yeah,
nationality?
yeah. What are the word? What's the word they use for that? Like
Are you talking about ethnicity?
no, dude, no. Like they taken like, yeah, girls. They taken
You mean wild
countries.
card?
Wild card. I
Okay.
don't. I don't want to take a
Okay.
wild card. I want to get in ethnicity. I don't want to take a wild card. I do want to get in there. Yeah, it just feels more like I proved myself without the
Hmm.
wild card, which I know is like a huge. I mean, that is just like definitely like it's not even like, yeah, just to not do a wild card is a huge step, and then obviously winning is just like 100 times harder than that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I think to get in without a wild card is my next goal. It would be really,
Yeah.
really cool to just prove to myself and to others that I can do that. But yeah, like, you know, I've always I really want to share with people that yourself, the way that you identify yourself as like a competitor or as a champion or as this like ultra confident alpha that's going to win doesn't take you that far. It just comes down to the practice that you put in.
Mm.
Like, and that's what I kind of wanted to, that's what I kind of want to share with the community, is that like I'm developing my mental, it's at a certain level, and I'm developing my physical, which is at a certain level.
Yeah.
And I can share that with the community, and I can share that, okay, I'm at this level and I'm at this level, and this is the place that I got. You know, like
Right.
there's nothing private about that. It's a very public thing, and it's either it exists no matter what. Like Taki or Ryoga, we're all on that spectrum of levels. You know, like
Mhm.
like of course Taki comes in with this crazy confidence, and you guys too come in with like a lot of confidence, and whether you know it or not, I think a lot of people just, you have an aura about you when you go and step on stage. But you're at a certain confidence level and you're at a certain physical level. Like you are on this spectrum as well. Like we're all on
Mhm.
this spectrum. There's no person that is outside of this spectrum and in another world that is like an alien, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and I just want to share with people that um you know, this is me getting my top physical level, like through these YouTube KWC uh, videos. Like this is how consistent I can hit this run. This is how many times I can hit this.
Yep.
This is the points that I can get, and this is what I did at KWC, right? Like that's like you can see that I was hitting 86-point runs pretty consistently, and I ended up with 75. You know, and I don't see myself as anybody a special type of player. I think that is pretty routine for everybody. You know, like of course there's like really ultra confident players like Adrian, who I couldn't imagine, you know, winning, coming out of nowhere and beating Nick to win EKC. That's just not. I think that's almost like an alien level. But I think it's just his ultra confidence. But I think 99% of players are like me, where um, you just are slowly progressing and slowly developing, and there is a level that you're at, there's a percentage that you're at, and the only thing that you could possibly do to increase that is by practicing and is by playing. And I think there is an argument to say that like, oh, by me sharing this, I do have added pressure to perform, but I kind of want to like risk that and take that for granted and just put it out there, and then if I don't perform, yeah, sure, like there's going to be those guys that like, oh, you know, all this for nothing or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
I I think it's even, I take that risk because I think it's even more of a reward for everybody else to be able to see my progression and then to see the place that I come in, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I think my progression is still my own. I think I am still really attached to my progression in a really like a self-identifying way. Um, versus hiding it from any. I guess I do that sometimes with my peers. I don't know. It's hard to express, but um, so yeah. Anyway, yeah, it felt really amazing, but I think I'm gonna plan to do that again for next KWC, and
Mhm.
I'd like to do that for battle. I just have limited time to show people where I'm at, and then to show people how I did. You know, I think
Yep.
that's just really cool to do.
Yeah. Documentation for yourself, but also for people to just see, like,
Yeah,
just put it out publicly and like, here's where I'm at, and just,
yeah.
yeah, again, putting yourself out there, which is really, really cool. So
Like
I look forward to
yeah.
seeing you next year at
What
KFC as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And whenever somebody asks me how to do a trick, I just instantly go back to their shoes of seeing you guys do a stilt trick, like a toss to stilt. That just seems so impossible to me,
Mm.
that it seemed like you guys weren't on this progression spectrum that I'm at. You guys seem alien. And when I was a beginner, I remember seeing other players that just seemed alien. Like there's no way I could get there, but you can. Everybody can. Like
Yeah.
it everybody can. Everybody's on the same spectrum. And so when somebody asks me how I do, like, oh, your 4-tap swap seems so insane. Well, I just remember all the work that I put into 2 taps, all the work that I put into 4 taps, all the work that I put into airplane 0.5 swap. I didn't put in less time than anybody else. Everybody has to put in the same amount of time as me. It's all this special amount of time you put in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of like try to really, meet them at their level of like, I literally like it was just time that I put in. There was nothing special about this. It was just years of like me going in and out of 4 taps and pushing really hard, and then having a clip to share on Instagram of me doing a 4 tap. And then, the last few months, you can see in my progression videos of me getting better at swaps. I was talking about how hard it is to go from 4 tap swap because I'm used to juggling. And then by the end of it, by KWC, I hit that in a few tries.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. I know it looks to somebody who a beginner intermediate, to see that it just seems so impossible and it seems alien. But I am on that same progression spectrum. I just put in those hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's more, and I want to there's going to be more to this. I think if I give a presentation at Houston for the Houston Kendama Intensive, I'm going to be talking about this. I think it'll be really exciting. Sweet. And I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, people listening, you can look forward to seeing that next month when we post it and everything. Yeah, man. I think you've really, really valuable insights on that, because before you've gotten as a player and how much you are putting yourself out there to the public for all this stuff. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah. Zach, I need to hear the most controversial Instagram questions. You just need to lay it on me.
No, I got you. I got you. We're going there right now. There was actually quite a few Instagram questions, so I don't know how many of them were controversial though. But let's let's take a look. So I'll go through a couple, and yeah, we actually had quite a few. We went over a couple, of course, in this interview.
Yep.
You said controversial. I'm looking for stuff, but it's just really not happening.
Okay, That's okay. That's okay. Anything we didn't touch on?
Yeah. So
we kind of hit on everything.
I do want to ask people a question. And actually, well, we didn't touch on Kendamanomics, which is something I wanted to. Trevor had a lot of questions for that.
Okay.
We can. All right, we'll ask some of his, because
I can do it. Yeah, a minute or two. Yeah.
Yeah, he really wanted me to ask you some of these. So I'll ask you a couple of his, maybe one more, and then we'll end it off. So,
okay.
You guys don't know, Isaac is also the owner of Kendamanomics, an app for Kendama progression, and he wants to know your thoughts on making it more accessible for new people entering the app now that there are over 1,000 tricks.
Yeah, I think that's going to be its own project. I mean, I think that kind of comes down to making the app more app-like. Like imagine a Duolingo or something, where like everything is there. Like there's no kind of freedom. You just have to take it step by step.
Yeah.
That's something that I don't really love to do. Like I kind of want to make it, you find your own way. But I think it is important, especially to make the app more popular, and honestly to make more money for me to pay to pay for the app back, because that's what I'm trying to do. But we were working on a really beginner list, but I think beginners would probably find most value of just imagine like a Duolingo like intro when you open the app of like, how long you've been playing, can you do this trick? Can you do this trick? Okay, do this step by step. And then you have access to the app. Or just maybe making more functionality of like, if you're a beginner, little pop-ups everywhere, and like for me, I think like Kendama, like my own personal progression, Kendamanomics is just slow and steady. It's just going to be there forever. I know there's a lot of things that we can do. There's a lot of bugs that we can fix. Bugs are our biggest priority, which I think we've basically got everything. It's still a little buggy here and there, but that's just the way it is. But it will come eventually. It's just going to be, the priority right now is to find cool ways that are really valuable, that aren't annoying, for the app to make some money. So it can keep going, because if the app can't make any money, then it can't keep going.
Right.
So I know ads are annoying. We put ads in. I'm going to, obviously get more Kendama companies into the ads. So hopefully it's more exciting to see a new drop from a company than just the annoying Kendamanomics thing. But the ads have to be there. That's the first step that we did. And then I'm really excited about this new system that it's not pay to play. It's just this really, really cool feature that we have coming that companies and players can sponsor if they choose to, but everybody's going to be able to watch. It's should be coming next February, and that will help. Hopefully, if it goes well, it will help the app make some money, and then we can go for more, kind of backtrack to like, okay, yeah, what can we do for more beginners? But I think the next few developments, I don't want it to make it sound boring and that it's going to be like more. It's not going to be more ads or anything. Like it's not going to be something that's kind of in the way. It's going to be really exciting stuff that it's going to be awesome for players and fun to watch. Because I think, Zach, you kind of know what I'm talking about. It's going to be. I don't want to give any hints, but it's going to be really, really cool, and hopefully that can help the app get some funding, and then we can kind of like close these gaps of like, okay, yeah, what can we do to make it more for beginners?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
And what is which player inspires you the most right now? That was kind of asked. That was asked quite a bit.
Um, huh. So many players inspire me right now. I mean, yeah, Chris Bosch's edit. Chris Bosch, super inspirational. Marcus is on this tear right now. He's not posting a lot, but he's just like progressing so hard. He's filming for an edit, and he just is like, his creativity inspires me. I've just always been really attached to style. I think there's certain players who are really skilled and at the top of the game, but they don't have a lot of style in the way they play. But like Ryoga has a certain style, Maharu has a certain style, Yasu, so inspirational. Taki has a style of the way that he kind of like comes up with his tricks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say those players for sure. Yeah, Franta obviously is all style, 100% style. Always fun to watch those clips. There's got to be somebody who I've been really looking at recently. But man, yeah, Instagram just not the same as it was, right? Like I just kind of made that realization recently, and just thinking back to when like every post, like you'd see like 3 posts every day getting like 80 plus comments because it was such a banger,
Yeah.
Like nowadays you don't really see that as much, maybe just because you get ads and other things more. I just get videos of like people falling off like mountains and stuff. It's like like I can't take my eyes away because I want to see what happens, but I'd rather watch like a Benji clip. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I do miss the old Instagram as it pertains to like being inspired from clips being posted. But yeah, I guess I'll just leave it with those players. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. So as we wrap up here, I mean, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. No.
It's been really, really awesome conversation. And to end it off, I mean, do you want to touch on any future goals you have for Lotus for this year, or anything that you're really excited about in particular for this year that you haven't touched on?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we just have this year we really wanted to, I had a big goal in the beginning of the year to really expand our shape progression and our new drops and do more for the community, for events and booths and stuff. And then next year, my mom was always a big New Year's resolution person, and so every at the beginning of the year, like right now it's the 24th, I'm just so motivated to like write down those goals of like what we're gonna do this year. But there's gonna be a ton coming. I mean, we're not gonna disappoint. Already at Battle, we have 2 incredible Kendamas that are just like slayers, incredible designs. One of my favorite designs I've ever seen. Celebrate a top player on our team. That's as much as I'll give you. That's dropping at Battle, and then we have a pro mod dropping at Battle. And then I think next year we're just going to what we've been doing that's been really good, which is like making new shapes. We're going to continue doing that because I have a good process in that just is like in flow right now. But then we'll just be kind of branching out to new things. I mean, I need to it's hard to make money as a Kendama company, as everyone knows. I need to focus on that, but that's more of me sharing Kendama to new people, which I've always done, but I kind of need to do more of like a business push into that, whether it's like Facebook ads, or if it's like really, getting to these new events, that's kind of more busy work. I just kind of love to make new shapes and new designs and send them to my players and do events and stuff, but that doesn't break the budget. That doesn't get me in green. What will get me in green is just really pushing, just kind of pushing the game around, which is going to help everybody, but also help me keep Lotus going and working on it full time. But yeah, man, and then I think with new shapes, like what I've been testing out recently, I got a brand new, fresh prototype coming in that I'm so excited to play. I think it's going to be a really, really fun shape, and I'll be getting it in a few weeks, and that's probably going to build into our next shape. And then we have another shape in development that's close, and then the newest shape dropping at Battle. So I think partially is just kind of like keep doing what we're doing, which is the good kind of stuff, and then it's going to be expanding into new territory. So
perfect. Continuing to make new shapes, expand the game, push the game there, and of course, it sounds like there's going to be some developments to the team. I mean, naturally, 2025, and then of course get into pushing realms of the business that have that are looking to have a big return, and also a big return on helping people and spreading Kendama. So that's absolutely massive. So I'm really, really excited. I'm really excited for Battle of the Border. I'm excited for Houston. We'll see you there in less than a month. So that's going to be amazing. And dude, this has been an awesome conversation. I'm really happy we got to do this. Thank you so much again for making the time on Christmas Eve. I really, really appreciate it.
Man.
Thank you so much.
Merry Christmas. And thanks, Zach. I mean, you guys have been doing so much for the community. I think most of the content that I'm getting right now is just from you guys, with the pre-BATB series. I know there's so much coming next year that we're working on. It's really, really exciting. I think we're really on this awesome wave of like a new frontier of Kendama.
Yes.
That is, I couldn't ask for better partners than you and Nick, because you guys just have so much passion, again, using that word, but it's just awesome to be able to work with you guys, and I'm so excited for next year.
Same. But I know Nick's not here right now, but we really appreciate that, and we both love you. We both love you. So, so I'm really excited for the future, and have a Merry Christmas. Enjoy the day with your family, and I'll be talking to you really soon.
I'm gonna try to hit flips today. So wish me luck.
You're gonna try and get what?
And so I'm gonna try to hit like 100 triple stilt flips in like the next few weeks. I just need to like go for it.
Let's go.
That's what I'm doing. So
all right. Well, well then by then you're gonna be hitting that every try battle. So
hopefully we'll see.
All right. Man.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
See you, Isaac.
Yeah.